reset with a new mast on their bow. Number 6, Portuguese-Polish duo. Yesterday's racing was epic. Here is a summary. What a massive day for the SSL Breeze Grand Slam and Star Europeans. The 95 boats completing 3 big races in sizzling conditions on Lake Garda. Danish duo Schönherr and Gravad created drama on the start line, smashing in on port. The right was again the favoured side under the mountains. Negri and Clean drag racing to the finish against Cayard and Lopez. The Italian-German duo showing their hunger to win. 95 Stars clean off the start line is a majestic sight. Kuzniewicz and Mello won the battle upwind with time to wave at the drone on the final upwind leg. An amazing performance by the Polish-Portuguese duo. Race officer Giancarlo Cravatin stuck with his plan to bank another race, the 5th of the championship. This time Americans Doyle and Feliz getting squeezed at the pin, then rolled by Grail and Trusch from Brazil. On that favoured Garda shoreline, Negri and Clean again showed their form. But it was Loof and Fatih, the Swedish-American duo, who came out on top, ahead of Doyle and Infeliz in the tightest pack we've seen so far. Olympic gold medalist Loof extended all the way to finish miles ahead in first. But the legendary downwind skills of Robert Scheidt with Henry Björning came into play, which sees the Brazilian duo at the top of the leaderboard after 5 races.
Yeah, we're happy, you know, it was a pretty tough day out there. It was really windy and you had to go to the right. There was not many options tactically. We had a little bit of a situation in the first start. Our main got ripped, so we got a rip of about 10 to 15 centimeters. We had to race all day with that rip, and I was always worried that it was going to get bigger, but it held on, and yeah, 3 good races, 3 solid races, and yeah, it's a good day.
On that final run, Kuzniewicz and Mello had a mast failure, which was gutting.
Yeah, we really enjoyed today, actually, except broken mast, but this happens on the last race, last downwind. Anyway, winning the race during the championship regatta, SSL Grand Slam, is just such a beautiful feeling, yeah, you know, and it came to us not so easy because we have to fight it back, and we managed to sail really good downwinds today. Upwind we were holding pretty good starts, but downwind I felt like I was dancing with my wife on this. The boat reacts so nicely on each wave and so on, and really accelerated. That gave us a win in the 1, 2, 3, 4th race.
There are 3 days to go in the SSL Breeze Grand Slam and Star Europeans, with only the top 10 surviving through to the quarters, semis and finals on Super Sunday, which means plenty of action to come. And joining me in the studio of the Fraglia Vella Riva is Maurice O'Connell. Prof, thank you for being here, a star coach, an Olympic campaigner, Melgist 24 world champ, and we've been analysing the racing over the past couple of days. We are approximately 13 minutes, I believe, to the start of race number 6. But Prof, tell us what do we have here?
Yeah, Digby, this is the European Championship trophy, which is a wonderful piece of sterling silver. There's some amazing names, hugely decorated sailors going back to 1962 on the trophy, so it really is a wonderful piece of star sailing history.
Quite a few of those names. I'm just seeing Fritjof, Clean, Grail, Diaz, Prada. A lot of those guys, Rohart, are on the racetrack, and we'll be coming to that in just a moment. Let's just dial into the week's schedule, the racing schedule for the Star Class Europeans, plus the SSL Breeze Grand Slam, the first ever Breeze Grand Slam on Lake Garda. Well, we started racing on Wednesday. And Thursday we had 3 races. Today we are looking at 2 races, I think, and tomorrow maybe 2. Then Sunday it goes, that's the qualifying rounds of 10 races maximum. And then on Super Sunday, only 10 boats, 10 teams go through to the quarters, with the winner of the qualifying rounds going into the final, and whoever's second in the qualifying rounds going into the semis. And that is really crunchy, and we're going to sell Super Sunday all day, because come back for that. It is an SSL innovation which many other classes enjoy, and it really is comes down to the crunch then, Prof.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic format. We're halfway through the qualification series now, Digby. We're starting to see some of the runners and riders really pull through, but it's all about getting into the top 10 so that you can get through and qualify for the finals on Sunday. That's what it's all about.
Each day we've been checking in with the PRO, the Principal Race Officer, Giancarlo Crevatin. Today a little bit different. Have you seen we've had a postponement? So let's hear it from Giancarlo of his plan today.
My intention today is to sail 2 races, because we are already on with the program. Yesterday we sailed 3 races, so we cannot sail one more race today. But the forecast seems not so good today. Yesterday, maybe we will have the same wind, but not for so long time, and we are going to come back as soon as possible, because some rain is programmed in the late afternoon.
So when you say less wind, what are we talking about?
We are talking about or around 10, 12 knots at least, but for a few hours. And so we have not all the entire afternoon to sail.
And I understand you're going to move the race course. Could you explain?
Oh yes, we prefer to move south the racing area, because we have another dinghy race here near Arco, and so we also prefer to change the sailing area. So maybe we have another option, and so more chance for the cruise.
Okay, so you're going to move around half a mile south.
Yeah, we go half a mile south. The wind may be the same. Maybe they have the same choose for the first and the second beat, but perhaps the wind can have a little movement on the left. So even if they go to the coast in the east, they can have some choice and good option to win.
Oh, that's interesting. And any final thoughts, observations from your perspective about how the sailing and the championship is going?
The championship is going very well. There is no one steady winner, because in each race we have a different position for the top sailors, and so it's very interesting. The starting line is very busy, is very nervous. Every start is very nervous. So the first boat who crosses the line cross around 1 second after the start. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, the whole fleet within milliseconds of each other starting. It's pretty good quality.
Is very high quality. It's very high quality, because even if in the starting line they change the position several times, so it's very difficult to understand who is going out, who is pushing. But luckily they start very well.
Thank you. Good luck today. Cheers.
Thank you to you. See you later.
Well, that was Giancarlo, Prof, telling us what's what, and hoping to get 2 races. We are some 15 minutes, I believe, off before the actual race start, so they're adjusting the line. We can actually virtually fly out on to Lake Garda and just have a look at a little bit of the geography of where the course has moved to, Prof. So let's fly from the south of Lake Garda, and we're going up through the mountains towards Riva and Torbole, the 2 little towns at the north, and you can see how the lake compresses. The mountains narrow the lake, which acts as a wind tunnel, and there we have the new race course. It is a windward-leeward course, just 2 laps, up, down to finish. Course number 4, I believe they're calling it. fairly standard, but Prof, different from the past few days.
Yeah, it's quite a significant change, Digby, compared to the last couple of days. The last few days, the breeze was coming from just to the right of south, about 190 earlier on during the day, and slowly shifting to the right towards about 230. Today, we're seeing the breeze further to the left, just to the left of south, about 170. So what we're thinking is that that may reduce the impact of the dominant right-hand side, which we've seen in the last couple of days.
Well, that'd be grand, because over the past 5 race starts, we've seen everybody just pile off right, bounce off the cliff and up to the top mark. So potentially we're into a different strategic scenario.
Potentially. I mean, the race course is a little bit further away from that right-hand shore as well. It's a little bit further to the east. The information that we have coming from the race course is that a lot of the teams are out there practicing up the left-hand side of the course, or up the the eastern side. So we will see it'll play out in the first 5 or 6 minutes of the first upwind as to which side is going to be the favourite side. But, you know, potentially speaking, perhaps the right-hand side may not be as dominant.
Well, these are the live shots from the water from onboard Lake Garda. You could see the race committee, the red and white postponement flag is up. They're hoping to go within about 10 minutes or so. Meanwhile, back on the dock before all the boats piled out, Shirley Robertson, who is our on-water commentator, double gold medalist, and it's been great to have Shirley with us. She caught up with some of the sailors and crews for their thoughts going into day 3 of the SSL Breeze Grand Slam.
Different day on the lake today, you know, a bit less wind, some new challenges on Lake Garda. Federico, you are always dressed and ready to go, but no helmsman.
Yeah, I like to be more worried about the boat so you can be relaxed and make the right decisions on the water, so this works well for us, I think.
Yeah, he's drinking coffee. I mean, yesterday, not the best end to the day. Broke the mast in that final race. You know, how confident are you that you're ready to go today?
Yeah, it was a pity, but we were pushing a lot to sail fast downwind, so we pay the consequence of that. So we don't want to change too much because we were doing quite well, but of course we have to be a little bit more aware of not pushing too much so we don't have major damage.
I mean, just very quickly, today looks a lot different. You know, what can we expect and how might that change things up a little?
I'm not sure. Garda, it's always difficult to predict. The local says that it's going to be windy like yesterday, so we are ready for that. Or if it's light, it can be very, very tricky and mess a lot with the score. So, I mean, whatever it is, it's amazing to be racing with so many boats, so many legends. So we're happy to be here and do our best.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Hopefully Matthias will stop drinking coffee and come and join you. Here he is. Come and join us. Come and join us. We were just laughing that he's always preparing the boat and you're drinking coffee.
Coffee is great here. Yeah. I really recommend this. Yeah. We are ready?
Yeah,
you'll see. Everything is organized, so I will go.
He's a great crew. You're ready to go. Have a great day. Good luck. Xavier. We watched you yesterday on fire. It was going. You could remember what to do, I guess.
That was a better day for us for sure, and I like the breeze since I'm born on the water. But then we try to keep and improve all the time, and it was a pleasure to have some big fights against Robert, Freddie, like the good days.
The fighting seems to have got harder and harder as the races have progressed.
Yeah, that's it. And also the wind was pretty strong at the end, so it was really impressive, the power you need to put in the boat to keep the pace.
Just a word really about today, because potentially it could be quite different.
Yeah, very different. I think the normal things are not yet. They said it's a good wind down there on the race course, so we'll see on the place.
If it's lighter winds, will we see the French boat flying or not? Feeling confident?
Always confident. Yeah, we changed settings, we changed the sails to a light wind mode, so we are ready.
All right, it's getting busy on the dock. Good luck.
Thanks.
Let's take a wander this way. Apologies. I will save you if you run into something. This is the VIP dock. The big names in the Star Sailors League are all here. Frida, you look very serious this morning. You mean business?
No, I mean it's nice solid wind out there. We hope, because we have already one big discard in, so we have to check that we don't get another one. So a day like this might be more tricky, but we're looking forward to have 2 solid races.
I guess we're halfway through the qualification now, and today's crucial.
Yeah, I mean it's a crucial day. We are very fortunate that we could get 5 races in already. We're very happy about that, and let's see what the day brings today.
Okay, we look forward to it. Good luck. Paul, you look ready for action today.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I love it. You know, sailing against all these great sailors in this beautiful venue. Hopefully the wind will come up a little bit.
We've been talking about you a lot on commentary. It feels like you really want to do well this week. What about today? How do you think you'll go?
Today could be a tough day, you know, if it's light. I mean, it's a big fleet and people can get very spread out. And as you know, Shirley, when it's light, it's very, very tricky. When it's windy, it's a little more straightforward and it's easier for the good guys to find the front. So we could have a lot of mixing today. And for the guys who want to make the finals on Sunday, it's an important day to not have a disaster.
Good luck.
Well, interesting there. Interesting words from some of the top contenders, Prof. An important day not to have disasters.
Well, it just goes to show, as Federico Melo, Mateusz Krasnervich's crew said, they made one small mistake in the handling of their star going downwind yesterday. One tiny error and the mast came down in 2 pieces. So it just shows how on the edge these boats are sailed. If you roll the boat into windward, dip the pole and the pole just glances off the water, the mast can break, and that's for the top guys. And the other thing that we noticed that Paul Caird said is that in the lighter air, it tends to give the rest of the fleet a lot more opportunity. The boats tend to go at more similar speeds. It doesn't place such a premium on fitness. So we may see a bit more of a change in terms of the people up in the front of the fleet. So it'll be a really, really interesting day. That said, I believe there's about 12 or 13 knots, so it's not calm or super light, but it certainly is a lot lighter than yesterday's day, which was a monster day.
Well, we are some 7.5 minutes to the race start of race number 6. Let's have a look at the leaderboard, if we could, and get a feel for the overall points after 5 races. Dominating almost at the top, Robert Scheidt, Henry Boning, with a 5th as their worst result. So, I mean, these guys are the ones to beat right now, and they are 6 points ahead of Diego Negri and Fritjof Kleen, the Italian-German duo. Diego Negri, such a great sailor from Italy, and Fritjof Kleen. Both of them have their name on this lovely trophy here, the European title, as does Mateusz Kuznerovic and Federico Melo. Well, Federico won't have, because he's just joining the Star. But if you look at their result, 27th, that was with a broken mast on the last downwind run, sailing towards the finish line. And there, as we've seen, they're up and running today with a new mast, a new rig, and a quiet confidence, I would say. Overall, Freddie Luth, Brian Fatih in 5th overall. Remember, Freddie is the Olympic gold medalist from the London Games. Brian Fatih had that injury, and I bumped into Brian having a little coffee this morning, and he is in real pain, Prof. And Freddie's trying to find another crewman, perhaps to replace. But Brian is the kind of guy who will just muscle through the pain, and we may well see him out there on the racetrack. So we are a few minutes away to race 6 start. We caught up with one of the well-known sailors here, Lars Grael. He's been the president of the Star class for several years. He's now handed that over to Dr. Hubert Merkelbach, who is racing with Marcus Coy on the water today. But Lars Grael, he's such a great Olympic sailor, a double medalist in the Tornado catamaran. He had an injury in '98, unfortunately, where he lost his leg, but he's still been out there and competing ever since at the very, very top level. So I had a little chit-chat with Lars just before the regatta. Lars, tell me, how is it to be here in Lake Garda for the first ever Breeze Grand Slam and the European Championship?
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a wonderful place for tourism. Maybe this week seems to be wild in terms of wind condition, but it's very nice to see joining together SSL event with the European Championship of the Star Class. It's a huge fleet, so gonna have extremely high-level competition. It's gonna be tough, big challenge.
Tell us about who you're sailing with here, your crew and your dynamic there.
In this championship, I'm sailing with Pedro Henrique Trouxe, called Boulder, because Samuel, which is my normal crew, he would not race the Worlds because he's going to be father now in June. So then the European would be my training event. So I invited Boulder to sail here. He's a very young, talented crew. Just won the SSL finals with George Zarif. So he's a very good crew, and I'm glad I'm sailing with him.
Now, I heard a rumor that this may be your last kind of major international championship. Is that true?
That's true. I was thinking about, I'm getting in an age where sailing Star Class in this level, it needs a lot of energy. And the energy basically means time and money, and not only the physical condition. So I want to dedicate more time for work. I'm already 55 years old. And also do different sailing, family and friends. But I'm going to be in touch with the Star Class, maybe doing some occasional events. And weekend sailing I'm going to be doing in Rio like ever.
Never say never, Lars. You must never say never. But maybe your last big international. But, you know, we've got people coming in like George. Fantastic. Enjoy your regatta, mate.
Thank you. I'm going to enjoy every hour, every moment, every race.
Well, the amazing Lars Grail there, competing on the water. We're under 3 minutes to the start. Prof, out on the water. Let's check straight in with double Olympic gold medalist Shirley Robertson. Our eyes and ears on the water. Shirley, give us an update, would you?
Oh, well, Digby, just when we felt we had a handle on Lake Garda, it's all different. I mean, a great breeze, about 12, 14 knots. But as we've been saying, coming from the left, and the race committee has positioned the course to the left-hand side as well. So instead of going up that right-hand side, right into the cliffs, we're going to be on the other side of the lake, and who knows what that's going to bring. I guess it is a different day because there is storms to the north, and actually you might be able to catch a glimpse of some of the big rain clouds that are coming down from the mountains. And yeah, I'd certainly, if I was sailing, I'd be looking at those. I'd be exploring that left-hand side, and we've seen a lot of the top sailors go up the left to see what that can bring. But it's going to be shifty, it's going to be a very different day, and it's going to be a day for really, you know, heads out the boat, looking up into the mountains to see what weather will arrive.
Shirley, whereabouts on the racetrack are you?
We are just below the start. There's just over 1:30 to go. The fleet is pretty well spread out, but I've seen a lot of gold stars towards the left-hand side. But Digby, they'll get to that coastline really, really quickly. So I think we can see a lot of tacking, a lot of strategy, a lot of tactics pretty early on in this upwind leg.
Thanks, Shirley. Well, Prof, coming up to a minute, we can see the breeze flying. Different prospect today for race number 6 of the Star Europeans and SSL Breeze Grand Slam. There's a perfect view down from the pin end.
Yeah, cracking view here, Digby. We can actually see the boats towards the pin are well bow back right now, and there's a bit of a bulge in the middle of the line. So the guys towards the middle need to take care that they don't break the line early and risk a infringement. So it's pretty tight and stacking up there towards the pin now.
Vasily Zogar from Slovenia, he's nearest the camera, nearest the pin, and I'm seeing bow number 6, Mateusz Kuzniewicz with Federico Mello. They're in the mix there, right next to bow number 3, Robert Scheid, Henry Burning. So surely there are some top names towards the pin end.
Yeah, there is, but
across the line there. Beg your pardon. In for a general, do you think, Prof?
Yeah, the boats in the middle of the line look to be over early. Tom Lofstedt, the Swedish guy, was over. Boats at the pin look absolutely bang on, except for the Argentinian boat, which is over early. So There will definitely be an individual recall.
Let's hear from the race committee. We're dialed into their VHF. I'm sure, Shirley, that we're going to be hearing a general recall.
Yeah, I think so too. A lot of boats over in the middle, as Prof said, and at the pin end. And interesting how quickly a lot of the boats have tacked onto starboard. So very much left phase of this breeze.
What was interesting too, Shirley, is that the race officer is still setting the start line up with a big port end bias. So even though the course is more to the left, no change to the way he's setting that start line up.
Well, a recall, or I think he actually used the AP to get them back, and so that means we're in another kind of 10-minute cycle towards the next start.
Quite often race officers, if they reckon that the start line is unfair and that it's excessively biased towards one end, they may just postpone the start at start time rather than signify a general recall. So if he's flying the AP flag, the red and white one, then it's a postponement.
Well, we were just seeing pictures of Lars Grael there, sailing with Pedro Trusch, and they're doing fairly well into this race. They're 16th overall. Bumped into Lars this morning. He wasn't too happy, telling us that his boat was shipping water and they were having to bail out between races, so there's a slight leak there, but lighting conditions potentially favouring him.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as we're seeing on our screen here too, it's a perfect opportunity also, Digby, for people just to check their tuning, check their speed, while this start line is being reset for the next attempt to get this away. So you can just see them lining up against each other and doing a little bit of a test.
Xavier Rohart, Pierre Alexis Ponceau, bow 8, and they are 8th overall going into race number 6. And we should emphasize that this qualifying series is 10 races.
Yeah.
And the whole mission for all of these boats, there are over 90 boats on the water, is to survive into Super Sunday.
It's all about getting into the top 10, Digby. And right now there are 7 or 8 former world champions in the top 10, but we've got some really, really top sailors just on the cusp. I'm thinking about George Szabo from America, Alvin Melleby from Norway, Dr. Hubert Menkelbach.
Yeah. Well, he's in 9th at the moment.
9th, and he will be doing everything that he can to stay in the top 10. But they've got some cracking sailors in the positions 11 to 15 who'll be doing everything they can to get into the top 10. And as we know, Digby, it all starts again on Sunday, on Super Final Day, once you make that top 10.
Okay, and fascinating that the Star class has joined up with the Star Sailors League to allow this format for their Star Class European, a very traditional trophy, which we've seen in the studio, and it goes all the way back to the 1930s.
Yeah, it goes all the way back to then, Digby, and the names here in the trophy go all the way back to 1962. So it is a departure for the Star Class to have this new format, and I guess it's really embracing this new style of championships, which ends up in a sudden death single final on Sunday afternoon.
Well, on that trophy are skipper names like Pelle Pettersson, which is a well-known sailing name, and Ian Percy, he's on there as well, Xavier Rohart as a skipper, Diego Negri, he's there, Mark Reynolds, the American gold medalist, double gold medalist, Freddie Loop is there, Torben Grael, some well-known, an Italian legend, Agostino Straulino, he is the most successful European skipper. Just a quick one on crews. I think Markus Coy, the German crew, sailing with Dr. Hubert Merkelbach. Together, they won the Europeans 3-4 years ago, and Markus has his name 4 times on that trophy, and he's pretty proud of that. So that is an amazing duo to watch. And who else do we have crew-wise? Fritjof Kleen, Frida, he's on there as well. And that'll do. So some great names as we look at the youngster bow 19
That's the young Italian sailor who is the current European radial champion.
Alessandro Angelini.
Prior to that, Digby won the European Laser 4.7 championship, so potentially an Olympic laser sailor in the making.
Yeah, and lovely to see
Jonathan at Charles.
Lovely to see an 18-year-old around the boat park with his energy and, you know, giving it the sort of,
I know it's
you know, to the cameras, the surfing, oh man, the dudes with the fingers and everything. So a really nice mix with the older generation. You know, we've been talking about Paul Kayod, who is fourth overall, coming up to 60 years old on Sunday, which he loves us talking about, obviously. But Paul Kayod, Olympic medalist.
Very, very tough and strong competitor, Paul Kayod.
Incredible.
The first 3 races was never outside the top 3, but interestingly in races 4 and 5 just came a little unstuck at the start, Digby, and just slipped down to 4th, but no doubt his experience will show in these slightly lighter airs today, which will require a lot more finesse, a lot more head out of the boat, trying to assess where the breeze is coming from, especially if this left-hand side of the lake starts to become favoured. The strategy should entirely change. So it'll be very, very interesting to see.
Well, these are live shots. We are in postponement mode. Just remind viewers, if you've just joined us for race number 6 of the Star Europeans and SSL Breeze Grand Slam, we've had an AP at the start. So all the skippers and crews taking their time to test the wind, upwind, and just they've got 5 minutes or so before they have to head back towards the start line. Shirley Robertson are, yes, and the jury saying, get back. What are you guys up to? Just reminding everybody that it was a general recall. Shirley Robertson, any update from you?
A couple of things. I guess I'm quite surprised that they all kept sailing, because most of them have VHF comms with the race committees. They're quite surprised that they've kept going. I guess the other thing is that, to me, the course is not correct on its axis. That, as you can see, all the boats have been sailing on port tack nearly the whole way, and I guess, you know, he's going to have to hopefully move it in some way. So let's see what he does. But basically, it's very, very long on this tack currently, with a short starboard at the end. It's also got a bit lighter, and I think it's really affected by the clouds. I mean, the mountains are high here, so it's quite hard to predict what's going to come down to the water and what's not. But we are currently still with the boats, and it's down to about 8 knots. So it's going to be a tricky day, I think, really shifty, up and down. You're going to have to change gear a lot, and you know, you're going to just have to, I guess, be a bit flexible about where you go and how you approach it.
Thank you, Shirley. Well, live shots are showing us the jury heading out and telling the boats to head back to the race start area. And if we look at 3D, we can just see how far up, if we look at virtual eye, just how far up the course they've gone, Prof.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, you know, because when a start gets postponed, or if the start, if a general recall is indicated, I mean, pretty soon, you know, you yacht on for 30 or 40 seconds, or maybe a minute, just to check out a few things, but pretty much you want to turn back, because the next thing the race committee will do is that they will drop either the AP flag at 6 minutes, and then you're straight into the next sequence.
Well, Prof, as we look at the virtual eye, we're seeing a wind shift, and Shirley was saying that they're almost kind of laying up towards the top mark. But what can the race officer do? Because he can't exactly move his top mark onto the mountain.
Well, if the wind shift is significant enough, the race officer either has to move the start line to the right, or the top mark to the left,
or both.
And in the 200-metre depths of Lake Garda, that's not an insignificant challenge, Digby. So it's a big job for the race officer to swing the course if there's a big shift like this. But certainly there looks like a big lefty has come down now. And I suppose in a way also, if there's that big a shift, it probably means that the sailors have a little bit more time, because they know that the race officer is going to have to do something.
Well, we have some cameras on board 4 of the boats. Giuseppe Di Stefano there, Bow 77. See what they're talking about for a minute, Prof?
There's the jury and the umpires on the water who are probably just dialed into the race officer and trying to understand what the race officer's thoughts are with regard to this wind shift, whether he is going to change the course or whether he's just going to change the start line or a combination of them.
Okay, on board with regatta leaders, Robert Scheidt, Henry Burning. Henry, the crewman nearest us, Robert, with his distinctive yellow cap. Banco de Brasilia. And worst result, as we mentioned earlier, top of the show, a 5th. So they've had a 3rd, 1st, 3rd, 5th, and a 2nd. That's astonishing.
That's outstanding. You know, I mean, and he is, you know, he's the hero, I guess, of this current sailing generation. There is no better small boat sailor in the world than Robert Scheidt, and a magnificent athlete. And he's back in the laser again for Tokyo 2020. And his first gold medal was in Atlanta in 1996. I mean, there's almost been 2 generations have come through in that period of time where he's been at the top of the sport. So Robert Scheidt is really is the man, and is certainly proving that this week. Absolutely stellar performance.
Okay, so Robert Scheidt and Henry Burning, the boat to beat at the moment with their 9 points, 6 points lead over Diego Negri, Fritjof Clean, with Mateusz Kuzniewicz and Federico Melo in 3rd overall.
See the crew here adjusting the side shrouds on the left-hand side of the boat and the port-hand side of the boat. So as the breeze drops down, the tension that the stays, the tension in the stays that hold the mast up needs to be adjusted and lowered so that the mast develops more power and the rig develops more power for these lighter conditions. So they will be adjusting stuff, and you can see the crew standing up there, and so he's just done a job there and changed the settings of the rig to set up for some lighter conditions. So there'll also be changes to the sail controls, maybe sailing with slightly less outhaul to deepen up the base of the mainsail, jib cars a little bit further inboard possibly to tighten the slot, and maybe not use so much running backstay upwind so that the sail is set up a little deeper and a little bit more powerfully for these lighter conditions.
Well, Prof, I have a compliment for you from Jan Dorset, who's sailing with Vincent Guidu. They're bow 43 and they're in the middle of the pack, middle to back of the pack. And you were commentating yesterday about their rig tune-up setup, which we saw perfectly from the drone. And you could see the sail flapping at the back, and you were talking about their rig as a star coach, an Olympic star campaigner as well. And Jan came up and said, oh, that was really great. Yeah, we've twiddled and changed our rig tuning, and thanks, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
Happy to help, Digby. That's what we're here to. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, that was grand. And we should emphasize that, you know, the top 10, 12, 15, there are some real professionals, full-time sailing pros on the racetrack. But then a lot of club amateur sailors, you know, just like probably most of our viewers watching this, keen sailors sailing at the weekend during the summer months, and, you know, looking at the likes of Paul Cayard and Robert Scheidt with awe and respect. There is Robert. He's just changing for the weather conditions. They've got their SSL bibs on, and on the back of the bibs will be their highest ever SSL ranking. Let's just tune in and see what they're talking about for a sec, Prof. Let's dial up their audio for a sec.
You can see Robert just taking some energy bar nutrition there from Henry. You know, it's a real balance when you're out sailing, especially in a very, very physical boat like this, to know what to eat to maintain your energy levels. And generally, the energy bars are just, you know, nice, slow release energy, and you just, because you can't really sail these boats with, you know, a full stomach, you have to use a very efficient way.
Nibble away on the water.
Nutrition into you. And this is a nice opportunity just to fuel up a little bit, because it'll be probably an hour or two since people have eaten, and it's a nice thing to be able to do, just to give the body a bit of a boost.
Okay, I wonder, we had a little chit-chat to Robert Scheidt before the championship, and he was telling us that he's going for another Olympics. He's done 6 Olympics. He's medalled in 5 of them, 5 consecutively.
An incredibly narrow 4th in Rio in 2016 debut.
And then the last Olympics, he was just off the podium, and it would have been the most incredible story in Brazil, wouldn't it? His home territory.
Rio, yeah. And he just fairly recently actually decided to get back into the laser, and he's in full-time training for Tokyo next year. So in fact, the laser European Championship starts on Monday, but he's decided there's just no way he can go straight from the Star Europeans to laser Europeans. So even the magnificent athlete that he is, the body would stretch to be able to do that. So yeah, I think if he does qualify for Tokyo next year, I think he will be 48 perhaps.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't bet against him. In fact, I bet that he would win a medal in Tokyo. I mean, he was so close in Rio, and he has also won, I think, 8 laser world titles, in addition to 3 star world titles. So he's the accomplished small boat sailor of his generation.
Well, now we're on board with Arthur Lopez, with Paul Kayard, the American sailor, ranked 4th on the Star Sailors leaderboard, the SSL rankings, and he's going to be 60, as we say, on Sunday. He's from San Francisco, one of the biggest names here, one of the biggest names in sailing, actually. He's done 7 America's Cup campaigns. He won the Louis Vuitton Cup on Il Moro di Venezia in 1992, and yesterday we had Enrico Chieffi, his tactician, in with us, commentating for race number 3. That was a real pleasure, a privilege, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you even just with Enrico in studio, just the way he describes everything in terms of distances, times, it's the real tactician's mind, and the accuracy that he describes situations is it just shows the sort of way that a tactician's mind works. And that's what you have to be able to do. So it was a real treat having Enrico in the studio yesterday.
Well, Shirley Robertson, double Olympic gold medalist. I think I saw your camera boat just next to the committee boat. What can you tell us, Shirley?
We just had the 5-minute gun go up, didn't we? So race officer not hanging about. He's got everyone back, and he's keen to get going. He has not moved start line as far as I can see, so very similar. It still looks pin end bias. The breeze is filled in a bit here, but I don't think this is going to be straightforward. Actually, I can see the windward marks. They're slightly to the left, so he's moved the top of the course, but not the bottom. And we'll see, I guess, if this is enough. That was 4 minutes, that gun you just heard.
Thanks, Shirley. Prof, you're noticing the U flag, the red and white checkered flag.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a U flag start. Digby, that just means that if you're over the line with 1 minute to the start, you are disqualified if that start isn't recalled. So the race officer just needs to get this start away, and isn't giving the fleet any chance if they are over the line with 1 minute to go. So I guess this will place a premium now on the digital GPS on each boat, the fix that each skipper takes on the committee boat and the fix that they take on the pin end, get a very, very accurate fix so that they know exactly where the line is and how many meters they have to travel to the line as they approach start time.
Well, the U flag is not his last recourse, because he can fly a black flag, as all the dinghy sailors watching will know, and that is the most drastic thing he can do, any boat over the line before the start. Boof, they're out. So the U flag gives them a minute to make sure they're behind the line. Anything with a minute to go, anybody over the line, that's it, they're out. And if they're over the line at the start, that's, of course, they can't restart.
correct. Yeah, I mean the black flag is it's the sort of final of the course, and the black flag is used very, very similar to a U flag, but if the start gets recalled under a black flag, your disqualification stays. So the U flag is kind of known as a soft black flag, and if the start is postponed or recalled, it means that you still have a second life. But you just don't want to take that chance. You need to be well back from the line with a minute to go, and just try and get away cleanly so that you can execute your strategy at the first beat. But it's pretty light now looking at the pictures, Digby, you know, probably 11 or 12 knots, maybe the breeze has backed off a little bit, so it'll be very interesting now to see how the start line sets up and whether it still is big port bias like we saw in the start that was postponed.
Well, there's Kayard. He's done starts at the pin end and the committee boat end on board. The 3D will eventually be able to tell us roughly where he is on that start line. Shirley, on our camera, we've got a camera boat at the pin end and the committee boat end. So we'll kind of flip around through the onboards that we have with Scheid and Kayard, and we'll see how this start goes. A minute to go to the start of race number 6 of the Star Class Europeans, combined with the first ever SSL Breeze Grand Slam and Prof discipline.
This is, I tell you, these boats are really close for a U flag start, Digby. I mean, there's a big bunch of them there, about 2/3 the way down the line, and they're less than a length away, and they've got 40 seconds to burn. So, you know, people are still being super aggressive in this U flag. You've got Freddie Loof down towards the pin in 8442, just disappearing out of shot, and 91 world champion Benamati in 7988. So it's pretty tight.
Oh, look at this. Getting heated, Shirley. We're hearing Robert firing off around him, saying there's no room, and just, you know, making sure some of the sailors, somebody's well over 15, bow 15. I think that must be Inf Doyle, isn't it? Eric Doyle, Infeliz. Oh,
so
okay, Prof.
There was plenty of boats over there. We don't know whether it was AP'd or not, whether it was postponed or not. I'm kind of seeing in the body language that it was. Otherwise, we'd see people full hiking off the line. So yeah, my judgment would be that they've postponed that start before start time. And I think with that level of port bias, they probably do need to think about maybe changing the configuration of the start line, because as long as this level of bias is there, then it's going to end up in a melee down the port end. So just looking at the sailors, it doesn't look that people are fully into boat speed mode, and I suspect that it's postponed.
Well, Paul Cow just giving a warning to somebody, make sure they don't have a collision in the slight confusion after these kind of starts.
It's interesting, you know, the information that we're having now is that that start has been let go. So for sure, to us on the screen that there were boats over, and the start.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, Xavier Rohard is looking around, but now they're going to have to get into race mode. Well, let's have a look at 3D, if we can queue up 3D for a moment. Oh, there's Rohard Ponceau on the left-hand side, bottom of the screen, left of the race track. They had to let quite a few boats go ahead of them, but Prof, I think we're away.
Oh yeah, no, we're for sure, Digby, we're away, absolutely. You know, it was just because it looked that there were so many boats over, and it looked that there was a bit of hesitation in the body language of some of the sailors. It looked to me as if possibly that the start was AP'd, but no, absolutely, it's flat out. There's Brian Fati and Freddie Loof now, and people are full hiking flat out into this first beat. Interesting to see Kayard and Lopez heading left, Rohart and Ponceau heading left, but Freddie Loof here on port tack on screen, and Kayard here on screen, starboard tack heading to the left-hand side of the course. So interesting, maybe a split fleet developing at this point, with some sailors to opt to the left-hand shore and some breaking to the right out of that port end. So the majority right now are heading right, and this will be really, really interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, let's have a look at the start again, Prof, because
really interesting, Divi, because if it is the case that there are plenty of boats over, then it'll be interesting to see which
here we go.
Called.
So the Star Class flag is up. That's
Eric Doyle.
And Infeliz clearly way over. 16 poking through. George Szabo, the American. Now we heard the gun there. Mate, there were a lot of boats over that line.
Yeah, I mean, our camera position was slightly above the start line, so we didn't get an exact picture, but it looks to me as if there were a good few boats over, so it'll be interesting to see what bow numbers.
It looked to me like Hubert Merkelbach and Marcus Coy were also over, but we don't have any confirmation from the race committee about individual UFDs, so we'll stand by for that, and away they go. And we're looking, I think, at Hubert Merkelbach and Marcus Coy there on bow 61. Dr. Hubert Merkelbach, he is the president of the Star Class, two-time European champ. He's been a European champion with Marcus Coy. Marcus Coy, big fella, huge giant of a man, works for North Sails, and he has his name on the European trophy 4 times, which is a real achievement. And these guys had a great day yesterday, and look at them, away they go.
And they're sitting in 9th overall, and they'll be very, very pleased with that. They got a beautiful slot just to windward of George Szabo, former world champion, the San Diego sailor, and they're picked the right-hand side, and they're heading right pretty hard. So you can see now that even in 11 or 12 knots of breeze, the Star boats are fully powered up, cruise over the side, and they will set their rigs up to generate maximum power in these conditions. Unlike the conditions yesterday, where they would have been depowering the rigs, flattening out their sails, twisting them off to try and depower, we're now in max power, high pointing conditions, and reasonably smooth water, a lot less choppy than we saw yesterday. So the boats will be able to achieve maximum speed pretty quickly, which means you can sail them a little bit closer to the wind and really go for it in terms of pointing.
Well, the entire fleet now making their way up towards the top mark. A lot more action in the middle of the racetrack today, Prof.
Yeah, it's interesting. The boats that were initially heading left, Digby, have now tacked onto port and working back towards the centre of the course. So, perhaps this might be just one of those days that you're playing the shifts. It all depends on whether you can get to the cliffs on one side of the course or not. I don't know what Shirley feels out in the water, but perhaps you just can't get to the cliffs, and if that's the case, maybe you can't get to any sort of accelerated breeze on the sides, and it's just a case of just trying to play the shifts up the middle, look at the dark patches of water coming down the racetrack, trying to position yourself to take advantage of those wind shifts and those gusts, and work your way through it.
Well, Shirley, let's catch up with you. You've repositioned after the start. We've talked about the start, and you're working your way through the fleet towards the middle of the course. What can you tell us, Shirley?
Well, Digby, we're on the left-hand side. We're literally sort of 50 metres from the side of the lake. But some of the main players actually who didn't get great starts on that left-hand side. So Kayard, Roart, and it's really shifty, and it started to rain, and I think actually on the left-hand side currently they're looking all right. They're in pressure. Wind coming out of that rain cloud directly above us. I don't know, they seem at the moment to be getting across the boats on the right, but I just think this is the day where anything can happen. And I guess, that kind of sailing where you need to be hedging your bets a little bit, managing your risk, and just being careful not to be too extreme. I mean, Kayard at the moment, literally someone could throw him a sandwich from the shore. He is so close to land, and he's going all out to the lakeside shore.
To the left-hand side, where you are.
It's looking It's looking. We've got some onboard video now of Caird, Charles, and he's actually sitting into the boat, so it's quite light looking at him on screen. But the virtual eye has him marginally ahead of the boats on the right hand side. So he's got a long way to go back into the centre. So I guess it'll all depend on the shifts, as he's saying.
Well, Prof, using virtual eye, the lead line is switching from the guys on the left to the guys on the right to the left to the right.
Yeah.
So this is interesting.
Well, the winds are shifting. It flicks left, it flicks right. Look how light it's getting now. The crews are no longer droop hiked. They're sitting upright in the boat, which means the breeze has dropped off to about 6 or 7 knots for these boats in our shot. Super light conditions, and it just requires a different set of techniques now. You've got to back off some of the sail controls and start looking for power. And if you get stuck in a light patch and about 50 meters away from you is in 1 or 2 knots more wind, Digby, that could well be 20 or 30% more wind speed, and that has a massive effect on the boat's performance in these conditions.
Well, Prof, Shirley was talking to Paul Caird, and we saw it in a little VT, and Paul was saying, well, day 3, race 6 of a 10-race qualifying series is really the day not to throw it away.
You can come unstuck on a day like today, like so easily, Digby. But now look at who's that on screen? That's Caird on screen. Yeah, he's got his boat set up really nicely here now. It's all about getting the crew rate over the side so that the rig can generate power. And here we have Robert Scheidt. He looks nicely set up as well. Boats generating a lot of power. The rig is over the side.
Now, I'm hearing from our director that the race committee has disqualified Robert Scheidt. We're on board with Robert Scheidt, the overall regatta leader. And apparently he is out. If I can confirm that.
Number 16 is George Szabo, 2011 world champion.
These are the ones UFD.
Number 56, Fabio
Davide Leardini and Sebastian Marazzoi.
Number 12
is Guido Scalinaro, Bruno Prada.
That's unfortunate. And bow number 61
was Hubert Merkelbach and Marcus Coy, who we could clearly see. I don't see. Are you convinced? Let's I'm going to confirm with my director. Correct that Robert is out. That is correct. So from the committee,
Robert Scheidt disqualified. Oh my goodness, Digby, that's big news now.
That is big news now. I mean, I with my own, from our position in the sailing club, we could see that Merkelbach and Coy were clearly over, and that's going to be a bit of a shocker. Shirley, any reaction to that?
Well, he's not a man really to make unforced errors, but so quite surprised that Robert Scheidt is out. He's always so clinical in everything he does, but it was a very difficult start line, and we saw the whole fleet was on the line, and it's tough. The mistakes happen. I guess Robert has a lovely string of top 5 results, so it's not the end of the world. A little update from the race course. To me, the boats on the right-hand side that are far right, almost to the lakeside shore, are actually accelerating forward. They're on a bit of a conveyor belt, moving forward on the rest of the fleet. So they seem to have breeze. I think the left looked good initially because it was raining and there was wind coming out of that rain cloud. Now the rain has dropped. Very light winds. It's like 5 knots of wind, maybe 6. And that right-hand side of the course currently looking really strong.
Confirmed through virtual eye, and for viewers in the States, Eric Doyle, Payson Infelice also out, also over the line, as are the Hungarian duo Tibor Tenka and Miklos Bezaretti. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boats out of this race, and at the moment Paul Caird and Arthur Lopez, who picked the pin end and headed up the left-hand side of the track, they are well off this leaderboard on the right, so they're middle pack at the moment.
The left has died, Digby, and the right is crushing completely. So it was interesting. Initially, the virtual eye was showing the left to be slightly marginally ahead, but as they've come back into the centre of the course now, the right is just absolutely destroying the left. So, yeah, interesting here. You know, not dissimilar to yesterday. Caird on the left, and the wheels have come off a little bit. So, yeah, we also saw Robert Scheid towards the middle of the course, but obviously he's disqualified now. So, yeah, big list there for the race officers. Not surprising that there was not that many, that there were quite a few boats open.
Well, overhead are Joan Kay and Fernando Ribeiro, helmsman. He's wearing his Rambler 88 gear, a boat that he has designed. He's a America's Cup and Round the World Volvo Whitbread Round the World race designer, top name in sailing, and he's out here on the track and doing quite well.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I was talking to him this morning, and he was giving out that his body is no longer up to it. 3 big races yesterday, and he was feeling every bit of the pain. So he'll be pleased.
Okay, well,
you know,
going into today,
we're going to see a lot of names up the right-hand side that we haven't seen before.
Exactly.
You know, which is great to see, and it's always the possibility on a super light air day like this that you know, you can see a big mix-up on the top of the leaderboard, and that's what we're seeing. And sometimes, if the right pays, you know, some of the top guys may try to take the start line advantage on the port end. You know, some of the guys further down the rankings may start towards the middle of the windward end tack, and if the right pays, well, then they're looking good. So, you know, some of the guys in the hard right now are just getting to ley line, and it'll be interesting to see how they look as they close in on the top mark.
Well, there is the leader, bow 50, Riccardo Improta and Andrea Lupoli from Italy. They are right next to George Szabo, Guy Avalon, bow 16. George Szabo, an absolute supremo in lighter breeze, as we've seen in the previous Lake Grand Slam on Lake Neuchâtel in Switzerland, which he won.
George is disqualified, so it'll be interesting to see whether they put him out of the race or not.
No, I don't think George is. Oh, yes, he is. You're correct. He is disqualified. So George Szabo, Guy Avalon, bow 16 from the race committee boat. As they go around that top mark, thinking they're in a heroic position, they're going to get a bit of bad news, Prof.
Yeah, I believe the race officer does notify the fleet on the VHF which bow numbers are disqualified, but some teams had difficulty hearing that in the VHF. Yesterday, so sometimes what they do is that they post the numbers on a big board on a race official boat at the windward mark, and they hold that board up so as the sailors go round they can see their number, and then it's just a long, lonely sail around to wait for this race to finish while you're waiting around.
Well, here are the race leaders: Riccardo Improta, Andrea Lupoli.
It's super light though, DB. Look, I mean, the breeze is all over the shop. You know, the crews are sitting on the deck. You know, these guys have just got a big shift, tacking back, and double tack around the mark. And you know, the breeze has absolutely died here, down to looks like 4 or 5 knots right now.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see what Shirley sees out in the race course. But it's Szabo's around second, but again, as I said, disqualified. I think that's bow number 61.
That's Hubert Merkelbach.
And they're disqualified also. So
they're looking, let's see, on board. You can see Marcus Coy. He's talking to Hubert. He's shaking his head and shrugging his shoulders.
So
going,
they must know. And
I would say so.
If they do know, they should really
retire immediately.
Get off the race course and stop getting in the way.
That's Uwe Barth. With
look at the spread on the fleet, Digby.
Yep.
The spread in the fleet now is hundreds of metres, and that just
Daniel Fritz, Arnie Bolton's going round.
The breeze has just come in on the right-hand side on that upwind, and the spread in the fleet is enormous.
Well, Improta and Lupoli, they're going to be pretty happy with that, because they're lying 85th overall with a did not compete. 69th, 51, and it did not compete. So this is a pretty stellar result for them. But here we're looking at Hubert Merkelbach, Marcus Coy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're still racing. I just saw George Szabo and his crew setting up the jib pole, so they're still racing. So they either don't know that they've been disqualified, or some sailors may believe that they've got a case and they want to appeal the decision and they race on. But typically speaking, in our experience, it's very unlikely that you get reinstated if you've been called UFD. So, yeah.
Well, that's why they're not in our leaderboard on the left, because our guys at Virtual Eye have taken them out of the calculations as the race leaders from Italy.
Yeah.
Head downwind.
Interesting news here. Diego Negri and Fritjof Kling will be very pleased to get around that top mark in 11th. Remember, they're second overall going into today. Robert Scheidt and Henry Bonig have just been disqualified. So Diego and Fritjof will be thrilled just to get around the top mark in 11th in these treacherously light and fickle conditions.
And this is Paul Cayard and Arthur Lopez still heading upwind, Koch.
Yeah, you can see his body right into the middle of the boat, just trying to heel the boat over to allow the weight of the sails and the heel of the boat to give him a bit more feel on the helm. And you can see the belly of the mainsail. The outhaul has been eased to generate a little bit more power in the mainsail, just to try and keep the heavy starboat trickling along upwind in this light stuff. But I'm not sure. Yeah, we can see now.
They're well at the back. Well at the back. If you see, look to the right of Virtual Eye, the screen, there's Cayard Lopez coming in.
And it's double trouble here for Cayard and Lopez and Rojar and Ponzo, because they're now coming upwind in the lee of the entire fleet that has gone around ahead of them and is sailing over to the offset mark. So they're now at the top of the cone where there's no wind at all. So, yeah, but actually, just to lock in on some of the leaders, Krishnerovic and Melo, look, I'm trying to see exactly where they are.
6th.
Yeah, that's a super upwind from them. They'll be very pleased. And bronze medalist Anders Ekstrom, who had that terrible collision on the first day with Tom Lofsted, they've had a nice upwind as well. And yeah, this is a real mix and gathering, Digby, of sailors up here now, which is great to see.
Well, we're now on board with Cayard and Arthur Lopez, and they're still heading upwind, Croft.
You can see it's so light now that the crew, Arthur Lopez, is sitting on the leeward side of the boat, and here they are, roll tack, weight over to the windward side, and that's they're pretty deep. But it's so easy to happen, you know. Even the top sailors can come unstuck on a super shifty day like this. And you know, one of the things you got to do is you got to have a strategy before the race and back yourself. Sometimes, you know, your strategy can be wrong. And as we saw here, and there's Hubert
Merkelbach, Marcus
Coy, and I think that they know that they've been flicked.
Well, we saw Marcus kind of shrug and nod, and that indicates that he heard.
And that just means, you know, because I would say that somebody in front of him looked behind and said, guys, you do get disqualified. And he shrugged his shoulders, shook his head, and maybe they're sailing on and maybe they're going to appeal it. Who knows?
Just jumping out to the water, and Shirley, who's out there on one of our camera boats. Is there anything you can tell us, Shirley?
It is so light now, at best, maybe 4 knots. And when I look further upwind, up the lake, it looks even lighter. I mean, there is quite a bit of big black clouds on the left-hand side. You know, maybe they'll bring some breeze, but it is really light. I mean, I guess what was interesting to me was all the boats that were called over were in that first pack up to the mark. And obviously they started early, which is an advantage, but I think that allowed them, they tacked very quickly and went to the right-hand side, and in the end, you know, that came good. Cayard and Rojar, they had really poor starts on the left-hand side of the start line and had no option, actually, but I guess to sail in what they had, and what they had at the time was very good left-hand breeze. So, There's a massive spread, Digby. I don't know if you're getting that from the virtuals. There's boats, you know, still waiting to go around the Windward Mark. It's huge. It's at least 3/4 of the run, the spread of the boats. Be interesting to see what else happens here.
And Shirley, were you at the top mark? Did your camera boat get up there?
Yes, we were right there. Really light, really tricky, and the Star's a powerful boat, though, isn't it? Even in, I mean, Prof will tell you, even in a few knots of wind, it trundles along, it gets going, but it's proper light conditions, and I'm just sort of wondering kind of what the next phase of this race will be, because it's very light winds.
Shirley, it's Prof here. It's really interesting. There's obviously been 7 boats disqualified, and I don't think that we've seen any of them stop sailing yet. Have you any idea what might be going on? Because it's hard for us to understand why they wouldn't pull out unless they just haven't heard the announcement on the VHF. Any thoughts?
I mean, I guess they just haven't heard it, and so what do you do in that situation? You just, even though you're a bit uncertain, you just keep going. But it's a little bit poor form, I think, by the race committee. They should try and get them out because they're affecting other people's races. We see that all the time. So yeah, I mean, I'd like them to be pulled out, but I guess they just haven't heard the radio comms. But I also saw that conversation between the American and the German boat, and obviously someone had said someone heard it on the radio, but I guess they didn't. And I understand that you're in the throes of starting, you're desperately trying to tack onto port and get going, and you don't always hear what's going on.
Thanks, Shirley. Fleet very gently heading downwind.
Yeah,
no kinetic energy.
It's super light conditions now, Digby. You can see the crews are now standing in the middle of the foredeck, and they're trying to get the front of the boat, the bow of the boat, down into the water and get the back of the boat, which is wide and draggy, out of the water. So the crews are standing pretty far forward now compared to what we would have seen yesterday when the crews are either at the mast or even back in the cockpit. So they're just trying to get that smaller wetted surface area of the bow into the water and get the larger wetted surface of the back of the boat out of the water to try and reduce the drag, to try and get the boat to slip along as easily as we can. But on board here with Robert Scheidt, you can see him here holding the double main sheet in his hand, and every little puff that he feels will be transmitted through his right hand, and then he'll be able to adjust the sail accordingly.
And from Robert's boat, we're seeing bow number 6, Kuzniewicz with Melo, the Polish-Portuguese duo. So overall, they're doing a stunning job. They came into the day in 3rd overall, a worse result, 27th. Robert and Henry obviously are going to have to discard this one, but 5th is their next worst result, so it won't damage them that much.
I mean, just looking at the scores there, Mateusz Kuzniewicz and Federico Melo, I mean, their scores up until they broke their mast yesterday were 4, 4, 6 first. So they've been sailing extremely well, and I think when they broke the mast, they were like 3rd or 4th. So the fact that they're doing so well in this race will be fantastic for their overall position. As Diego Negri, I think we saw them come around this top mark in 11th, and once again going down this run is going to be snakes and ladders, because if the breeze is blowing at 4 knots, Digby, and there's a little puff of breeze at 5 knots, that's a 25% increase in wind speed, and that has a massive effect on the relative speed of the boats.
Well, they're getting a little bit of everything. Race number 1 on Wednesday was in pretty tasty, feisty conditions, and now they're getting a little bit of different flavour on Lake Garda. The race committee knew that it was going to be hard, even yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, and in your interview with the race officer this morning, he knew that the breeze was going to be lighter, it was going to be further left, and he also said that it was probably going to decrease during the day. So the information that he has is absolutely spot on. and that's what we're seeing. So very delicate conditions now. You really just have to keep the body movements to an absolute minimum, because if the boat bounces around too much, then the airflow detaches from the sails and the boat slows down. So you just got to be really cat-like in the boat, nice and still, small gentle movements on the tiller, small gentle movements on the sail controls, and just keep the boat moving as best you can.
Well, perhaps down at the bottom gate, they still have another lap of this racetrack to do, Prof.
Yeah.
Perhaps down at the bottom gate, nearer the race committee boats, they'll send a little rib out and start putting numbers on a board and giving it in no uncertain terms.
It would be good if they did that, Digby, as Shirley says, just to clear the boats off the racecourse that have been disqualified. Sometimes there's a temptation not to even believe the VHF sometimes.
Sure.
And trying to
mishear it.
And mishear it, or will it that the race officer called out the incorrect number. But really, they should try and clear them off the racecourse if they can at all. The next challenge for these guys is going to be going upwind, and you can see the huge spread of boats coming down the run. And when you go around the leeward gate, it's going to be trying to get upwind, away from the massive wind shadow now that this fleet are creating, because in light airs the wind shadows can go on for 6, 7, 8 boat lengths, and even the wind, if it's moving very, very slowly as it travels down over the fleet, it can detach and lift up over the fleet, and you can end up trying to sail upwind and nothing if you're trying to go upwind underneath them. So,
well, Fritjof clean on the bow with Diego Nebgri, his skipper.
Adjusting the shrouds, Digby, again. So he's backing off the tensions on the shrouds. So there's little hexagonal nuts on those shrouds, so you can adjust them 1/6 of a turn every time, and that decreases the pressure of the rig and allows the mast to straighten and develop more power. So he'll be making some tuning adjustments now going downwind.
For the lighter breeze.
For the lighter breeze. So they may well have set the rig up at the start for, let's say, 8 or 9 knots of breeze, but now there's like 4 knots of breeze. So they're making some tuning adjustments as they go dynamically during the race.
And if you hear a little ping over the commentary, that's our WhatsApp group with the race committee, and they're telling us that there's no change to the course, so they will run exactly the same course for the second lap of race number 6. We are in a 10-race qualifying series at the Star Europeans and SSL Breeze Grand Slam, and then the top 10 go through on Super Sunday in a couple of days to the quarters, semis and finals, where 4 boats will be battling on the racetrack in a much shorter, much more difficult tactical strategic scenario, and they have $100,000 prize money pot, and those 4 boats will be fighting for the lion's share of that. Pretty nice work if you can get it. It would be really good to see some of the lesser well-known crews get into that top 10, and the more weekend sailors, for example, Hubert Merkelbach.
Yeah, we just saw the one of the teams there on screen just preparing for a nice big roll jibe. The other thing too, if you're one of the 7 boats that's been disqualified, the other thing too that you're praying and hope for is that the race will be abandoned. But as long as the wind direction stays reasonably straight, then
now, Prof, here we're on board with Cayard and Lopez, and he's wound himself up into 25th at the moment.
Well, I'm glad of it, I'd say, Digby.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
He was in the back 20, I would say, so he's just scalped about 10-15 boats on this run.
And looking behind there, he's got a nice lane, nobody obstructing his breeze, and he's just gone down the left-hand side of this run, and it looks like that it's worked out well for many at this stage. So it's all going to be a bit of a park up now here in the gate, because as the boats go through the gate, they're going to slow down a lot, and then the boats behind are going to pile in, and it's going to be fairly congested and fairly confused as we get around this gate, and just getting out of there alive is going to be the name of the game. What are we seeing?
Oh, here we go. Live pictures. George Szabo.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Yeah, he's now been told. Yeah. And now he's giving out.
Oh, yeah.
Not happy.
He's not happy about that at all.
Is now
Come on.
a happy man at all.
Hey, Shirley, we're quite lucky that we don't have some audio on board that boat because I assume there's some pretty colourful language, huh?
Well, you're probably picking up on our microphones.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he's not happy. Not happy at all. Neither is the German crew, and I think that might continue as they let everyone know. But good on the race committee. You know, they picked their moment, they pulled them out, and I think we'll see a better race for it. Breeze has actually picked up a little bit. It looks slightly more promising down here, maybe 5-6 knots. Crew's beginning to hike out, so looks a lot better for the next leg.
Okay, well, Guy Avalon, crewman with George Szabo. Yeah, nothing they can do about that.
No, it's just
Got to grin and bear it.
You got to chill out now and relax and put it behind you, and then just have a look at the racing and just hang out.
Well, there's Raoul Daschel and
Jonathan
Fischer
Daschel.
from Austria, rounding that bottom gate in first place. Bow number 6, Kuzniewicz with his Portuguese crewman Frederico Melo taking the alternate gates. They can go around either one. Interesting to see the Polish-Portuguese duo going around the left-hand side and working their way up, so presumably they'll want to tap back into the middle as soon as they possibly can and thread through the downwind boats.
Yeah, I mean, just because the right-hand side paid on this first upwind doesn't necessarily mean it'll pay on the second upwind, especially if the conditions are changing and flicking left and right. Your initial strategy has got to be to try and not sail up through the fleet. And if you see Krasnierowicz went around the left-hand mark.
Now he's through them, isn't he?
And he's now through them out to the right-hand side. So on balance, that's a nice bit of sailing.
Well, here's Freddie Loof, bow 7 with Brian Fatih, the crewman who had such an injury to his back by another boat crashing into them, and he's heroically continuing because he really did not look too good this morning. He was in real pain, so he's trooping and soldiering and muscling through this.
I mean, I met him yesterday morning and you met him this morning, and like all these injuries, sometimes the next day you can bear it, but 2 days later it gets pretty tough. So I can imagine that he's chewing the painkillers right now.
Well, and they're doing okay as well. They're in 9th position, top 10. So fair play to Brian Fatih.
Yeah, and as Shirley said, just seeing on the screen, you know, the pressure and the wind speed increasing a little bit, maybe to 6 or 7 knots, something like that. But most of the fleet now look as if they're tacking onto port to get out of the way of the fleet coming downwind and working to the right.
Well, coming downwind, I would say to our camera team to look out for bow number 1, approaching soon, Paul Cowd. We'll see where he ends up eventually going around this gate. That's 11 coming down, Augie Diaz, Bruno Prada. Melody and Rebkin, they are around, as are Grail and Trush. Alessandro Angelini, Martin Helsberg, Italian-Danish duo, bow 19, they're about to come through. And then Augie Diaz, Bruno Prada to the left of screen, bow 11. With Giuseppe Di Stefano and Davide Bortoletto from Italy. Super tight this, and this is actually incredibly hard sailing.
Oh, it's fiendishly difficult. Absolutely, really difficult. I mean, you can even see in the video here, there are glassy patches, there are darker patches. You know, the wind is just fluffy and inconsistent. What we're getting the information from the race officer is that the breeze is blowing at 8 to 9 knots. It's hard to see that right now, to be honest with you.
And here's Pauquet up. Presume they've just gone round, now heading upwind. He's just trying to find a bit of clear air. We're hearing the onboards there. Some traffic around them. and they are Virtualia slightly behind us in real time. But off they go upwind, and I think they were rounding in about 24th, Prof, something like that.
They'll be pleased with that. As I said,
25th.
No, the left died so badly upwind that they'll be pretty pleased just getting in 25th. So wind direction, according to the race committee, is still at 170 degrees, so slightly left of south. So same wind direction as they posted before the start. But I think what has happened here is just big changes in wind speed as opposed to wind direction.
Ah, confirmation. They're now in 20th, 21st. So, that was an amazing leg. Shirley, we were seeing Paul Cayard absolutely buried off the start and heading upwind, and he managed to claw back 10, 15 boats on that run.
They hit great speed and, as Prof said earlier, good positioning. This breeze that's come in has come in from a rain cloud above us. I can feel the cold air coming out of it. So it's an odd venue, isn't it, when the wind comes from above. You don't see it just coming ahead of you. Literally, you have to look up to see it coming. So I don't know how long it will last. Most of the boats haven't gone very far left. They're nervous of that side, and I've been in a hurry to tack on to port. The course is once again very long on port tack. Just for your information, Digby, Robert Scheidt continued. He didn't see the board. He didn't pull out, so he's still very much racing, although obviously disqualified from this race.
Thanks, Shirley. Well, we're looking at the onboard shot with Robert.
Yeah, wind speed increase. Robert's crew is out over the side, legs underneath the hiking straps, so they're into that pressure now. And the leaders, the Austrian Raudeschel, probably the son of one of the great Austrian sailors, Raudeschel. So they're having a fantastic race. You can see here on the bow with Guillermo Danelon and Mattia Gazzetta. Not quite fully hiking, but the boat nicely set up there. Just got the windward chine out of the water, and it's useful in the Star sometimes just to get the crew down and for the helm to drop in a little bit, and it's all about just getting the crew over the side.
Well, Danelon and Gazzetta 41st going into race number 6. Their best result so far is a 21st. They've had a 28th, a 62nd, a 41st. So they're going to be happy with that. And our race leaders, Raudeschel and Fischer from Austria, their best result was 27th, and they are 44th going into today. So, as you mentioned earlier, Prof, this really is a switcheroo day in a lighter breeze, different race track, different winds, different conditions. We're seeing a real shake-up of the leaderboard.
Massive shake-up, Digby, massive. And it's a snakes and ladders day. The ladders being the puffs and the gusts if you manage to get into them, and the snakes, unfortunately, are the lulls that you slide down the back. So it's a tough challenge to sail upwind in this light stuff for sure.
Well, Prof, we're going to lean on your expertise, because at that bottom gate, our guys have spotted a little incident here of rights of way. What can you tell us?
So if we could just hold it there,
just freeze it there.
Ignoring the boat that's just rounding the buoy, what we have here is the boat on the left at the top of the screen is overlapped on the boat to the right on the top of the screen. And if you have an overlap on the boat ahead as you enter the 3 boat length circle, that means you've got right away, and the boat outside must give you room. So you have to give room to the boat inside you if they've had an overlap when the bow of the lead boat enters the 3-boat-length circle. So it's one of the rules on sailing that governs the right of way of boats going around the mark. But as you can see, both of them have had a shocking mark rounding here, and that's allowed the boat behind to nip in the gap and take those 3 places.
Thanks, Prof. Well, meanwhile, the race is continuing on leg 3 of 4. They'll go around the top, round the spreader, and then back down towards the finish. It is Rauschel and Fischer from Austria, and look, in mathematically second, Kuzniedowicz and Mello bow number 6. Shirley, you're, I think, you're right next to those guys. What can you tell us? Mateusz Kuzniedowicz, Federico Mello on a charge.
I mean, he's doing a really good job of managing risk. He was on the far right-hand side, and we've seen him take a couple of hits back into the middle. And I guess now you don't need to be throwing the dice, and very much protecting his top 5 spot and doing it really well. There's wind now all the way to the top mark. It's, as I said, it's coming from a rain cloud above the mountain on the left-hand side of the lake. So he looks in a really strong position and moving forward on everyone, doing rather well. I would like to add, there's a lot of lake sailors in this fleet, and they're really relishing that. And we're seeing that by our leader, Rauschel, from Austria. And I've been chatting to some, you know, in the bar. They sail on little lakes near Munich, never very much wind, and I think the last couple of days have been a bit of a shock to them. But today is a different story. It is for lake sailing. It is light and shifty and difficult, and really about reading the conditions and, you know, managing your risk all the time. So it's turning into quite a good race.
Fair play to Florian Rauschel and Michael Fischer, the Austrian leaders of race number 6. They have Kuzniedowicz and Mello bearing down on them, so they're going to be trying to fight them off, Prof, on this downwind leg. And you can see Kuzniedowicz is inside the cone.
Yep.
And Rauschel and Fischer will be approaching the ley line, and we'll see if they can cross ahead before the top mark of Kuzniedowicz and Mello. Lofsted and Ekstrom are in that little mix, as is Barth and Rutz, Fritz, Boltins, Coppo and Brandonini. And there's Freddie Loof, Brian Fatih on the right-hand side on the same track as Rauschel and Fischer.
Yeah, the Rauschel and Fischer are looking strong actually on the right now. Just in the video that we saw, both themselves and Kuzniedowicz and Mello had the cruise over the side, so they're bow out now into probably 7 or 8 knots of breeze or so. You can see their lower running backstay quite tight to pull the middle of the mast back, to put some more depth into the mainsail for maximum power and pointing. And yeah, it's a lot easier to sail any boat once you can heel the boat over and work against some force in the sails. But obviously a little left shift would be good for Mateusz and Mello. But right now it's Rauschel by about 40 metres, and they're on board here with Robert Scheidt, who
still going.
May not be accepting that he's disqualified, or may indeed not even have the information.
No.
He's sailing.
Yeah, he's totally focused, the Prof.
Yeah,
he has no idea that he's
bronze medalist Anders Ekstrom is in 4th with Tom Lofsted, and Tom Lofsted is a star sailor who's come back to the class, and he raced the Star at a pretty high level, you know, some time ago. So you know, you got to remember that a lot of these guys, you know, where they may not be at the top of the fleet in the rankings, they may have a lot of star sailing experience, and when it's a light like this, you don't require the levels of fitness and the levels of boat handling finesse that come from hours and hours in the boat, but you can still do really, really well, because it's about your experience, your ability to spot the wind, your ability to manage risk, and to stay out of trouble.
Talking of experience, Mateusz Kuzniedowicz helming with Federico Mello. who was the Volvo Round the World race crewman on Turn the Tide on Plastic Now, sailing in very different circumstances, different style, different boats, with the Supremo Kuznidovic. And fairly soon they will come into engagement with Rauderschul and Fischer, but it looks like the Austrian pair have got this one.
Yeah, well, it looks like they have this upwind leg. By no means do they have this race at all. It's different. If you have this lead in a day like yesterday, then you'd be very confident that you'd be able to hang on to it on the run. But having this lead of 47 metres on a light day like this around the top mark onto the last run does not in any way mean that you've got this race in the bag.
Well, Federico Mello just talking to Mateus, his skipper, and here we go. They are getting in amongst it. Shirley, any update from you?
We're at the Windward Mark, Digby, and interestingly, Rauderschul is a really good sailor. They're a real Austrian sailing dynasty. I had quite a lot of, they're sailmakers too. I had a lot of their sails in the Europe class. They can sail really well in this stuff. And just watching him, even although he needed to tack for the mark, he just kept going. He was patient, he waited, and he waited until he got a shift. And he's come back, he's heading at pace towards the Windward Mark, overstood, but, really getting the boat rumbling, and, didn't tack until he got a shift to do that. So he sailed well. He really did sail well and get out of trouble. But to me, it looks like Mateus and the Polish boat has just nipped ahead, and we'll see him come around the mark in the next few seconds.
They were racing within the cone at the top mark, and they've taken the lead over Rauderschul and Fischer. So strategically and tactically, Prof, that was great.
I tell you, Rauderschul, they had the opportunity to tackle at the starboard a lot earlier and cover off Mateus and Melo, and didn't take it. And he's after getting unstuck something awfully out on the top of it, right inside there.
Horner's gone through. Robert Scheid still competing, still racing on the track. And Prota and Lupoli having such an amazing race, the Italian duo in good form. Here the Germans, Barth and Rutz, 22, just about to do a couple of quick tacks, getting out of trouble. Prof, those guys?
Yeah, no, I guess I'm just thinking about the Austrians really, Digby. I mean, they overlaid that top mark by so much, and maybe there was a little bit of...
That's them now just going through. So they've lost 3-4 places in that
super sailing by Mateus and Federico. They stayed inside the cone, and they were hitched up to windward of Rauderschul and stuff, coming from the middle of the race course over to the top right. And it just goes to show you, if you get to the ley lines too early, your options are limited. And I think the Austrians are kicking themselves that they let that slip away, because they were very, very strong 3/4 the way up that beach.
Freddie Loof and Brian Fati, bow 7. They're about to tack over onto the ley line. And they're the Irish duo, Peter, Robert O'Leary, friends of yours, Prof.
Yeah, the whole family are here in Lake Garda, and it's good to see them now. They were 6th in the last race yesterday, and it's good to see them knocking on the door of the top 10 in this race.
Germans, Winkler and Thielemann, just heading around that mark. They've got a little spreader mark, an offset mark. Gallinaro and Weiser sliding through.
Am I right in saying that Gallinaro is one of the boats that was disqualified, Digby? Bow number 12. Let's just
go back to that. 66. Here are the Irish duo, Peter and Robert O'Leary, from southwest of Ireland, Cork area.
Bow number 12, the young Gallinaro, unfortunately is disqualified as well, which is a pity. So you know, it's interesting, you know, when you're racing along and you know that there's been a bunch of boats disqualified. If you know that you're not one of them, it's kind of a comforting feeling when they haven't been pulled out of the race, because you know that you're going to jump up by the number of places, by the number of boats ahead of you that are disqualified. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out at the end. Diego Negri and Fritjof Klein, steady, hanging in there in 10th, and I think they were 11th at the previous winner mark. So that's a nice steady slot for them in this light stuff. But hats off to Mateusz Krznarewicz and Federico Melo for absolutely nailing that upwind leg. They did a super job.
Well, that was all tactics within the little triangle, the yellow triangle underneath the top mark, which Paul Cahard would call the cone. And Cahard now with Lopez on the ley line heading towards that top mark in 20-something. So back with some of the leaders.
You can see leaning the boat over to windward is a nice technique in this super light stuff as well. It just seems to help the balance of the boat. It helps the jib set a little bit better. It gets the boom up in the air a little bit, and possibly even into some ever so slightly faster wind speed. And it's a nice sort of setup to do if you're trying to get some depth in some nice flat water.
Well, we're now flying over the fleet, flying over Robert Scheid. Oh, it's slowing down a bit, Prof.
Yeah, looks like it's softening out again, Digby. Well spotted. Looks like we're down to kind of 5 knots or so. It's shades of the Olympics in 2008 in Qingdao, actually, where the wind was so light and we just had to train in these light conditions all the time, and it's tricky. But it looks like Robert there has a little puff, and it's just soaking to leeward of the boat ahead, and it's just coaxing the boat downwind there with his crew on the foredeck.
Hey, Prof, Robert Scheid, I mean, I've described him as a fiery competitor in that interview that we did with him, and he's going to be pretty furious when he crosses the finish line and realises that he's out.
Yeah, well, you know, I think a lot of the top sailors and top athletes in the sport, they can't be too fiery, because that indicates that essentially you're not in control. You know what I mean? He's a hard competitor, for sure, but you know, in general, Robert's pretty cool, calm and collected, and you kind of have to be, otherwise, you know, he just wouldn't be as successful as he is. No, he's no pushover, obviously, but he's a pretty cool dude.
Well, the big man, Arnie Boltins, sailing with Daniel Fritz, German-American duo there on bow 40 in 7th position, going down towards the finish line. Bolton's one of the best crewmen on the scene, on the circuit. He's 4th at the Star World with Augie Diaz, and he's from Annapolis in Maryland. Quite a few Americans here, Prof.
Yeah, well, the star class has always been very, very strong in the US. You know, that's where the roots of the boat come from. And here's on board with Cahard, just getting the body weight down low in the boat. The lower you can get the body weight, sometimes it can be a little bit better, especially if it's very, very choppy, because it gets the centre of gravity down towards the waterline.
So now, Prof, a consummate pro sailor like Paul Cahard, his mission now is just to pick off boats, right?
Yeah,
it's
to pick off boats if you can, and if you get yourself into any sort of a decent slot, it's to not get picked off. And yeah, for sure, you know, right now he's in 23rd. You know, he's had a couple of poor results now, and this is the 3rd race in a row where he's not been at the level where he's been. So for sure, he's going to try and pick off a few. But just dipping back here to his results, Digby, yeah, like the previous 2 races, he was 24th and 10th. So he'll be trying to, for sure,
beat 24th.
Beat 24th, so he can try and discard that 24th.
And for Kuznirovic and Melo, their results so far, 4th, 4th, 6th, first, 27. So 27 still their worst result as they cruise down with their new rig. You know, how cool is that? To kind of take your broker mast off, reset your whole rig, come out the following day, looking cool, calm and collected on the dock, chatting to Shirley and talking about having a little cappuccino and coffee in the clubhouse and quite calmly smashing race number 6.
I saw him leave the hotel pretty early this morning. So typically speaking, your spare rig, you generally have 2 rigs at any regatta like this, and you have your second rig set up all ready to go. So it would have been about getting that new rig in the boat, getting the tuning of it right, getting out early and making any fine adjustments.
Well, they are now being attacked by Thomas Hornos and Morey from the USA, just meters behind them. And as Kuznirovic looks back, right behind him is Thomas Hornos and Ed Murray from the USA. Also their best result on bow 48. Remember, Scheidt and Burning are out of this race, so this result doesn't count. He may upset things slightly, and he may even finish first. And you know, we've been talking so much about Robert Scheidt as the downwind supremo. He may cross the line first, but that doesn't mean anything. And the race really is between Kuznirovic and Melo and Hornos and Morey. And I wonder if Hornos and Morey can take a scalp here.
Ed Morey actually is a star sailor. He's a star crew, and he's been sailing the class for at least 15 years, so a very, very experienced crew. And this downwind stuff is so tricky. The crew has a big part to play, because the crew can stand up on the foredeck, look backwards, try and assess where the puffs are coming down the racecourse, and try and help the helm position the boat to take advantage of those puffs, but also to keep the boat in clear wind. So you got to look backwards, look upwards at your wind direction, and try and manage the lanes to keep the boat in clear wind.
Well, the aerial shot of Thomas Hornos, Ed Morey, just sliding down almost neck and neck with Kuznirovic and Melo. When we move back to virtual, we'll see and pull out Rauderschul and Fischer to the top left of our screen. Prof, they are taking a radically different path down this final leg.
Yeah. You know, like as I said before, if there's 5 knots of wind blowing and, you know, a competitor just gets a puff of 6 knots, you know, that's a 20% difference in wind speed, and that's a massive change, and it has a massive effect on the relative performances of the two boats. So all you need is a little puff, and it's fantastic. And if you run out of it, then it's the reverse. So it would be interesting to see now if we had some video just to see exactly what the relatives between the boats look like, and if we could pan out at all, that would be really interesting to see. But it looks like a three boat race for this 6th race in the event. There's Mateus and Federico just after jibing, and Mateus rocking the boat upright and just getting a bit of acceleration and airflow out the leach of the sail. So it's pretty much neck and neck now between Kuznirovic, Melo and Hornos and Ed Morey. And as I said, bronze medalist Anders Erkstrom crewing for Tom Lofsted, sailing very, very nicely indeed in 3rd. And actually a little bit of a comeback too for Rauderschul. And as Shirley said, they come from an Austrian sailing dynasty, so very, very experienced lake sailors from Austria. So generally them all jibing now onto port. Hard to see where they are with respect to the ley line, to the gate, but I'd say they're probably only still maybe 2/3 of the way down the run, something like that.
Okay, well, we understand that Shirley is having some engine issues, Prof, at the top mark, so we won't go back to Shirley, but as our other camera boat moves forward down the track, we'll be able to look through the sail of Kuznirovic and Melo across to Hornos and Murray and just see that two-boat duel towards the bottom mark. They've still got quite a way.
They're all in port jibe now, Digby, so Kuznirovic is looking strong, just looking at the virtual eye right now. So it would seem that he just has to just cover the two boats behind. But as I say, tricky stuff if we see any change in wind speed relatively between them.
Okay, looking down towards bow 50 of Improta and Lupoli. These guys are having a nice race. And Prof, what can you tell us about their technique?
Yeah, crew 8 out on the windward side, hanging on to the mast, rolling the boat to windward, and they seem to have a nice little bit of pressure there. And even the helm has shuffled his body weight forward towards the running backstays, just trying to keep the bow of the boat in the water. And they look as if they got a nice little puff. And in those sort of conditions, it just allows you to soak a little bit deeper. Don't have the vang too tight. Open the upper leach of the mainsail, which sort of pins the main out at the top. And it's just a really nice mode that they seem to be in just there. You can see the crew's just got his feet out on the windward side of the gunwale and the boat rolling over to windward nicely.
Well, there's a story at the front of the fleet. They are probably more than halfway down the final beat, final run of race number 6. Kuznirovic ahead of Hornos and Murray. We've taken Robert off, or he's got the idea. Lofsted in that little mix. So Robert is still going on down, but we've taken him off the tracker just for now, as Improta and Lupoli in a super position behind that little front bunch in 5th place in race number 6. They're going to be delighted with this, Prof, because we're seeing a lot of new names apart from Kuznirovic and Melo in the top 5.
Yeah, it's Kuznirovic and Melo looks as if they're managing this race so well. In terms of the leaderboard overall, we've still got Diego Negri and Fritzof Klein are sitting in 10th at this point, with Freddie Loof and Brian Fati sitting in 11th. So they are the players who are currently in the top 10 of the leaderboard. And obviously in our screens we'll be able to see Robert Scheidt, but obviously he's disqualified from that blue flag decision at the start.
Okay, Daniel Fritz from Germany, Arnie Boltins, USA, working their way back. This is their best result, bow number 40.
Yeah, and the crew here is positioning himself on the leeward side, and you can see, standing slowly over to the windward side now. It all depends on how much wind speed you actually have at any one point. If it gets super light, a little bit of leeward helm. Now they're jibing, switching the pole, and then they roll over toward the jibe.
Well, Daniel Fritz, it's sailmaker, I believe. Fritz Segel, son of Werner Fritz, and keen sailors, both of them.
So see, it's just starting to compress up now as they're coming towards the gate. We can see on virtual eye, I think we're starting to see ley lines appear, and they're starting to come in towards the gate. They probably have about 5 minutes to run, perhaps towards the end of this race. And the leader is now about 325 meters from the finish. But it's looking right now as if Mateusz Kuznirovic from Poland, with his crew Federico Melo from Portugal, have got this race nicely sewn up after that cracking second beat that they had.
Well, just wondering where Kayard is. He's in 23rd, all the way back there, and right behind him, breathing down his neck, Orgi Diaz and Bruno Prada. So he's just calmly making his way down, very softly sailing for race number 6. Very different from what we've had over the past 2 days in the first 5 races of the SSL breeze Grand Slam. And the race officer knew it was going to be tricky. I suspect they may not run another one. I'm not sure, Prof. We'll see in a minute.
Well, we will see. I mean, there's not.
They were forecasting it to drop a little bit. So
you know, generally there's sort of a rule of thumb that, you know, perhaps 5 knots of breeze is your kind of minimum wind speed. But we will see.
Well, there was shite and burning crossing the finish line. They thought they'd worked their way to the front of the fleet, and they're not going to be too happy going into the club tonight. Mateusz Kuzniewicz, therefore, with Frederico Melo, the Polish-Portuguese duo, calmly work their way upwind to take the lead around the top mark, finishing race number 6 in first position. Another bullet for Kuzniewicz and Melo. Superb and consistent racing. Race officer taking the time and passing that on to his team, and sliding through Thomas Hornos, Ed Morey from the USA in second place. They are going to be so happy with that. Their best result by quite some way. And coming in third is I think Lofsted and Ekstrom.
That's a cracking result from them. It's an absolutely fantastic result for them, especially after their big collision that they had on the first day of sailing. So super result from Tom Lofsted and Anders Ekstrom.
And then coming in behind them, Raud, Schull and Fischer from Austria, who led for so much of race number 6, but just made a tactical error towards the final top mark, tacking too late over the ley line and giving it away to the 3 boats ahead of them. Riccardo Improta, Andrea Lupoli from Italy in 5th position, followed by Fritz and Boltin, the German-American duo there in 5th place. So a lot of names up in this top 10 coming through the finish line who we haven't seen do particularly well. So it really is favouring a different style of sailing, a different boat setup, different crew weights.
Yeah, it's as I said, you know, when in the stronger wind conditions that we saw for the first 2 days, you know, that would definitely favour the teams that are sailing full time in the class. It's where your fitness can come into play. Your time in the boat will pay dividends in terms of your boat handling and your ability just to sail fast in the strong conditions. But on the light stuff, you know, once you're a strong, experienced sailor and tactically aware, you can do well. And we've seen a lot of new faces at the top of the fleet here today in the light conditions in Lake Garda. It's probably looking about 6 knots of breeze right now, Digby, so no reason why he won't have a second race in 6 knots of wind. If it did drop to below 5, then for sure he'd probably go into a postponement and have a look and think about things. But right now it looks like there's reasonably decent breeze at this point.
Well, Prof, we can dial quickly back into Shirley Robertson. Shirley, what can you tell us? You've had a bit of trouble at the top.
Well, I had trouble at the top, but I am back down the bottom of the racecourse and I'm with the winners, Digby. A real sense of relief. It was a stressful race.
Oh, it was, especially on the beginning, because we started on the comedy boat, and I don't know if you watched, but it was so, Pin was so favorite. On the beginning, I think I remember that I said to Frederico, don't look up, don't look up. And on the top mark, we were already 10th or something like this, and then we worked out our way. Very nice race. It's a little bit shame of Robert, because he's sailing great this regatta and this wind, but probably he was over the line.
We were commenting on the commentary about how well, particularly, you sailed on that second beat. I mean, really defending your position. Just talk to us a little bit about your strategy there.
Yeah, we saw that there was stronger wind on the right, so we want to protect the right. And as soon as we had opportunity to gain back some boats, we came to the left, control the fleet. And the approach was very good. We get 2 small shifts on the end and made us round first. So everything went well for us.
I'm very happy about the communication. This is the first regatta we sail together. Normally on the Dragon, when we sail, Federico is sailing on a different boat, and we are just commenting this. But I really love like the communication with Federico.
Well, a team with momentum. Well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. Quick work again, jumping onto the winning boat.
Yeah, good stuff, great stuff, Shirley, and that team now are in a bit of a charge because their results now are 4th, 6th, 1st, discarding their 27th and another 1st. So it really goes to show that it's about putting a series together, and they'll be delighted with that. They're a 10th at the first mark and to win that race.
Well, here's Kayard crossing the line neck and neck with Augie Diaz, two American skippers coming through that line. We've still got more than half the fleet to finish, but on board with Paul, asking if there's another race. I'm not sure what the race officer indicated or what we could learn from that bit of... He wanted to know, Prof, whether they were going to run another one.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if he doesn't.
Nothing confirmed from the race committee.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can see on the virtual eye there, Raudishel is heading back upwind, just checking out the next race. So there's no question that there won't be there's no question that the race committee will be setting up to look to run a second race for sure. I mean, as I said, there's probably 5 or 6 or even a touch of 7 knots of breeze blowing right now. So for sure they'll be intending to win the second race.
Okay, so we're expecting more action on day 3 of the Star Class Europeans and the SSL Breeze Grand Slam. And as Paul Kayard mentioned earlier, it's not the day to be putting some bad results in. It's a day you can easily sort of lose it if you're in the top dozen.
It's so easy. It's so easy to come out unstuck in these conditions. And if you look at Paul's results, he's had a 2nd, 3rd, 2nd, and then he's had a 24th, 10th, and whatever that race was, 22nd or 23rd or something. So it's very, very easy to come unstuck in these conditions. And in the light stuff, just getting off the start line, the ability to accelerate in very light airs is a lot more difficult compared to when there's 15 knots of breeze. And typically speaking, a starboat probably takes 20-25 seconds to get up to full speed in these light airs, maybe even 30 seconds, whereas in 15 knots of breeze Digby, you can sheet in and you can be at full speed in 10 seconds. So getting off the start line in this super light air is very, very difficult. That's the challenge for sure.
Right, Prof. Well, let's have a little review of race number 6 from that dramatic start.
Yeah, I mean,
here we go.
As I said, coming up to the line, here's Eric Doyle in bow number 15 breaking early, and then to windward of him in bow number 16 is George Szabo breaking early. So there's a bunch of them popped over early there in the sort of bottom third or middle to bottom
61,
third.
Merkelbach and Coy.
He's over early as well, and you can see it's a big port hand favoured line, so the boat's on to port, and that's why I thought there might have been an AP, because it didn't look as if Merkelbach was hiking directly off the line. But then there's the big charge to the right, and the left looked kind of good for a while, and it all kind of looked even Steven, but pretty soon the right just came in so strong and crushed the left, and the breeze just looked as if it collapsed on the left hand side of the course. And we saw Paul Caird and Xavier Rohart coming in very, very slow in from the left, and that's the way it played out. And when the breeze splits in terms of wind speed, and one side of the course being, a little bit more breeze than the other in this light stuff, then the spread of the fleet is massive. And you can already see this fleet, the distance from the leader to the bottom is just huge. So they're just trickling around the top mark now, and that's the Italians in the lead. And that's the team over Improta and Lupoli in the lead. And here's George Szabo from the US, fantastic light air sailor from San Diego, where the America's Cup was in 92 and 95. And he'd be disappointed having got flicked in that race for sure. Downwind crews standing on the deck, halfway, 2/3 of the way from the mast to the foredeck, getting the bow in the water. Then coming down into the bottom mark, Szabo not happy, remonstrating with the race official, asking them what was going on. Did they tell them on the radio, wondering what's going on, and eventually accepting it and having to put up with it. Picks up his radio, maybe checking to see if it was switched on, who knows.
Bottom gate there, Prof. People going around left and right.
The key thing about this bottom gate was to not put yourself to leeward of the pack of boats coming back downwind. And then we had that room at the mark incident, the boat behind at the top of the screen, right, just nipping inside as the two boats that went around ahead just had a very, very poor mark around them. It's like going around the corner in your car. You approach wide and exit narrow, Digby.
Yep.
That's what you got to do when you're rounding marks. You approach wide and exit narrow. And then here's Krasnorovic just establishing a real lock on this race going up the second beat. Raudishel and Fisher were strongly ahead, but Krasnorovic were hitched up on the inside of him, and my guess is that Krasnorovic just took some really sweet wind shifts and a little bit of pressure towards the middle of the course, and it just looked as if Raudishel overlaid that top mark by quite a long way, being honest. And here we are, Mateus and Federico rounding the mark. Very glassy alley conditions and very, very tricky downwind to go. As I said to you, Digby, just because you're ahead going onto a 1 mile downwind leg in dead light conditions, it's really treacherous. And,
second place.
Yeah, Hornus here, I think, is that Ed Morey, my friend from LA, crewing from. Cracking race from them. As I said, Ed's an experienced sailor and would have helped a lot in the downwind tactics there. And
well, they were pretty close, 2 boat lengths.
Very close, yeah. Really great downwind sailing from them. And they were close to Mateus and Federico at one stage, very close. So. As we saw, Robert Scheidt actually finished ahead of them on the water, but was flicked in that race because he was over the line at the start and got disqualified under the U flag. Yeah.
Okay, well, not typical Lake Garda conditions, and that is, that's just sailing, isn't it? We're under the augurs of the weather, and that's the humility that we have to learn. We can say that we want a breeze Grand Slam, and if it's a light wind day, it's a light wind day.
Yep, or there might be no breeze. So it's one of those, you have to be able to sail and put together a championship, Digby, in anything from 5 knots to 25 knots of conditions in flat water and choppy water conditions. And that requires a whole suite of skills that you need to have in terms of understanding the boat, how to depower the sails, how to power up the sails, where you put your body in terms of the forward and aft weight of the boat, left and right. And in this light stuff, it puts a premium on being able to get your head out of the boat, look up the race course and try and see where the puffs are coming down the race course and try and get yourself into the position to take advantage of those puffs. Whereas in the breeze, it's much more about grunt, about fitness, and about being able to go fast. But in the light stuff, you got to be really light on your feet and be able to switch strategy and switch tactics depending on where those fluffy little puffs can come down the course.
Well, Prof, here in the WhatsApp group with the race committee, there is no confirmation yet, so they'll be having a little bit of a think about the second race today, race number 7. But, as you say, if it's over 6 knots, they should go ahead, but we will see. I'll tell you one thing I can say for sure, that this whole region around Lake Garda is quite stunning, and we are privileged to be here in such a beautiful surround. Take a look at this. stunning place.
Some
isn't
spot,
it, eh?
some spot.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's spectacular, not only for sailors, but for hikers, for cyclists, for all sorts of tourists. And it really is. It's an amazing place, an absolutely beautiful spot.
Well, we've had a little bit of rain a couple of nights before the start of the European Championship. It was full thunder and lightning, massive lightning strikes, snow on the mountains. So we've had a bit of sun, breeze, snow, you name it. Very unseasonal weather for May at Lake Garda for the SSL Breeze Grand Slam and the Star European Championship. But, Prof, here we do have the European Championship Cup, which is a beautiful piece of silverware.
Yeah, beautiful piece of silverware, Digby. There are some famous names.
Come on, let's go. Let's read some.
Well, I mean, if we go back all the way to the 60s, there's the famous sailor Gorostegui, and then going through to the 70s, the wonderful American sailor Schoonmaker, the one of the youngest ever Star World champions, Alex Hagen from Germany in the early 80s, and then going through to the wonderful Australian sailor Colin Beashel, who was the main sheet trimmer on Australia 2, the first ever America's Cup winner to take the America's Cup in 151 years. And then going through into the 90s, I'm just going through here to the 90s, where we've got the double Olympic medalist Ross MacDonald, and Reynolds' name is there a couple of more times. And then into the 2000s, where we've got Flavio Morazzi from Switzerland, Mark Mendelblatt, the US sailor, and then Robert Scheidt numerous times, Diego Negri, Mateusz Kusnierowicz.
Robert Staniak, Marcus Coy. Marcus Coy's won this 3 times. Zitsky and Kusnierowicz. And who are the latest ones there? Diaz and Prada.
Augie Diaz and Bruno Prada are the defending champions. Previous year was Lars Grail, and the previous year to that was Elvin Melvey and Fritzof Klein. So it's a real who's who of star sailing, Diego, and it's a wonderful piece of star-class history.
Well, talking about who is going to win this year's Europeans, let's just take a moment to review strategic, tactical moment in that last race where Kusnierowicz managed to work his way to the front of the fleet.
Yeah, I mean, Raudishel is here. He's got a pretty firm control on this race because he's positioned to the right-hand side. Kusnierowicz tacks over into the centre and back onto port and is up to windward, more towards the centre of the course. But right now, you would have thought that Raudishel is exposed there because the majority of the fleet are to the left of him, and obviously if the breeze went left or it filled down the centre of the race, then he could be exposed. But it still looked that he was pretty strong. But as they just got up to the cone, Digby, Kusnierowicz just started to close in a little bit, but also it just looks as if Raudishel just overlaid the top mark, and that allowed Kusnierowicz to work up the centre. Raudishel tacked, and I just think he overlaid it, and he just gave away all that distance. Kusnierowicz may have got some pressure up the centre, as he is here on starboard tack, and his last tack then onto port just now only had a short distance to go, and Raudishel just had a tragic overlaying of the top mark and gave away about 4 places. But cracking sailing from Kusnierowicz, stayed in the centre of the cone, didn't get exposed too far to the ley lines, and I guess that's why he's a double Olympic medalist.
Well, talking of Olympic medalists, the person out there on the racetrack with the most Olympic medals is Robert Scheidt, with his golds, silvers and a bronze in the laser class and fin class. And we saw him have a bit of a mare in that last one, not knowing that he was flagged over the line at the start until he'd crossed the finish line and worked his way to the front of the pack. So let's have a little look. I managed to catch up with Robert about his campaigning, because after 5 consecutive medaling Olympics and a 6th where he came 4th in Rio, he is now attempting a 7th in the laser class.
I decided at the beginning of 2019 that I would try to have a comeback in the laser, which is not so easy. It's a big ask, and physically it's quite demanding. But I think I did the right choice, and I'm slowly improving. I did 2 regattas so far, and I've been getting better and better. I feel better on the boat. People are joking that at this time, this stage of your career, the physio is more important than the coach, and I kind of agree with that too. But so far it's been working well. My body has been responding. The first few weeks of laser sailing were quite hard on my body, but slowly muscle memory is coming back, and I feel better on the boat. It's kind of a short campaign now. There's not a lot of time left, and I still have to make the trials. So that's going to be important. This year we have 2 possibilities, either the Worlds or the test event. So those 2 will count for the Olympic spot. And well, hopefully I can do it, can qualify, so then I can focus only on the games.
You are one of the most fiery competitors in sailing, and it's amazing that the fire is still there, still burning.
Yeah, the fire is still burning. I love to compete, and I love to have a goal ahead of me. You know, I think it's something that I missed when I stopped campaigning. To have your project, your goal, and wake up in the morning and you know what you have to do to reach that. So that's good. And as long as my body is allowing me to do this and my family is allowing me to do this, I'll keep going. For sure, this is my last try because, you know, with all these changes that the World Sailing is doing, it's very little chance of an older guy to campaign these days. But I feel that if I do the right things, I can put myself in a good position for Tokyo.
And final question, just on this lovely Europeans here in the first ever SSL Breeze Grand Slam. Your thoughts on the location and the venue?
Well, the location is amazing. You know, I'm suspicious because I'm based here in Lake Garda. Riva is a great club. This is a very traditional club. I think one of the oldest and most traditional sailing clubs in Italy, and it has hosted many great regattas, and this week will be the same. And joining forces, Star Class, SSL, and Riva, Radavella Riva together, we'll have a great championship for sure. And hopefully the weather will be good, and I think it will. And we'll have more than 90 boats on the water, with a great final day expected. Many big names of sailing here, many VIPs, and but also, you know, weekend sailors, because that's also what makes the class so strong. So there's people from all over the world here, and yeah, really excited to start on Wednesday.
And they've been incredibly kind by quietening down for this interview and having a little listen in. And I love this whole scenario, the club scenario, the bar. It's just normal sailing.
Yeah, well, it's great. Yeah, a lot of the chat goes on in the club bar. You know, a lot of the tuning and a lot about the wind knowledge. So this is a great club, and it's very friendly, great food, and everybody loves to come here.
Well, we love coming here, Prof, because I liked the ambiance in the club, because we've been up there every morning having a little cappuccino and cafe, and the girls are completely charming behind there and swift to deliver, and it's just normal. It feels normal here.
Yeah, well, it's a sailors' club as well, Digby. You know, there's a real sailors' pedigree in the place. There's a championship pedigree in the place. You can see the way the club is set up, that it's just designed for the sailors. And, you know, there are just some clubs that you go into and you just know there's experience there, experience of running major championships. And that just, you know, just the pictures on the wall of some of the great sailors that have come out of the place. And those sort of clubs are really, really unique. In that they welcome probably 4 or 5 major regattas every year. One of the biggest regattas in the world is this Optimist event that they have every Easter. I think was it 1,400 Optimists that they had in Easter this year, and like just having 1,400 kids' boats in the one place is just a massive logistical achievement, and they've been doing that for decades. So generations of sailors, not only Olympic sailors but club sailors, have come to Riva del Garda, to the club here to race, and it's a cracking place. I first sailed here in 2005, and I have to say that I love coming back. It's a super place.
Well, it is part of the reason that the Star Sailors League, the SSL, has chosen the club, Riva del Garda, Fraglia Vella Riva, as a training base, one of a few around the world. And the man in charge there is Frida Fritjof Klein, and he brings sailors from different disciplines, the laser, match racing, round the world record breakers like Loic Peyron. They come here before the SSL Invitational Final in the Bahamas, and it is wide open to any sailor and club racers and club star sailors as well to come and get some training from the likes of Fritjof. And here's a little story about that.
Good morning, boys. Welcome to Villa Brunelli. Let's go. We have a busy day in the SSL Training Center. Let's get going. So now we're here in Fraglia Vella Riva, the club of the Star Sailors League Training Center. We are here to not only prepare for the SSL finals every year, because all the finalists can come here and train and use the Star Sailors League boats. They're provided. We have sails provided by Fritz Sails. We have Negri Nautica helping with hardware. We have coaches like Christian Rasmussen, Fabio Zeni, Kilian Weise. Now you can also stay 100 meters away from here in Villa Brunelli. We have 20 beds for all the sailors, but also the amateur sailors can come here, train with the pros. All together, it's a great help for not only the SSL finalists, but also for the star class sailors around the globe to come and prepare in this beautiful lake. We have a physiotherapist, we have a personal coach, so everything happens here in Fraglia Vella Riva and the beautiful city of Riva del Garda, and of course great evenings in restaurants and famous bar Pabaloca.
Here at the training center, SSL Training Center, we had some great experience, and last time we were so well trained that next race we won, so we were very excited about that, and that's the reason also we are always coming back here.
The SSL training center here is working really well. Have many sessions per year, many young sailors coming and joining as well, which is very positive. And I'm really happy that I'm able to take part this time, and I'm really enjoying the days that we're training here.
The setup here is great. We've got chandleries, we've got physios, we've got guys helping set the boats up. We've got good level coaching, so it's great. And this morning we sailed in the northerly breeze, got a decent session in. Looks like the breeze is going to turn round, then we can sail in the southerly breeze in the afternoon. So it's a really good place to get some good hours on the water.
Prof, super base to have an SSL training centre, and who better than Fritjof Klein, Frida, as he's known, this larger-than-life German personality, past world champ. He's won the European champs, and he is really great at organising stuff and bossing people around. And he's been in our little gallery here, our TV studio, and showing people around, and he was instrumental in bringing the championship here.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, as you say, a huge personality in the class and a hugely decorated sailor. But, Riva and the Lake Garda is just a wonderful location to have a training camp. And it's one of those interesting geographical locations because there's the two famous winds that blow here, the Ora and the Pellair, that's the way it's pronounced. And one of them blows from the south and the other one blows from the north. And often during the summer, you would get one of them blowing until approximately lunchtime, and then it would shut down, and then it would blow from completely the opposite direction. So it's almost a natural break in training that the sailors can come in and refuel, rehydrate, and then head back out when the wind is coming from a different direction. So it's a cracking venue and a great place to have the SSL training base.
Well, I spoke to Fabio Zeni, who's a laser coach, full-time laser coach, and we're making a little feature on that, and we'll show that tomorrow, about the Peler, which is the northern breeze that comes in from overnight and in the morning. And people like Robert Scheid, who train here, they can jump into their boat, shoot downwind, then it peters out around midday. He can have a nice lunch and then jump back in and come back downwind back up towards his club on the Aura, which is the warmer breeze then moving in from the valleys south of Lake Garda.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, these thermal winds are caused by heating, and quite often what happens is that as the sun rises and the ground, let's say in the north, starts to heat up. What happens is when the land heats up, the air rises over the land, and that creates low pressure, and then the air over the cold water stays cold, and that's high pressure. And what happens is that then results in the wind blowing from the south to the north as the wind blows from the cold air over the lake to where the warm air was over the land, and those differences in pressure are what we call thermal winds, and that's what happens in the lake.
Well, those are the live shots out there on the water as the race committee is in postponement mode, just resetting course towards race number 7. Do stand by for that. I know they want to put on another race. It looked like there's enough breeze, slightly different conditions here today. But meanwhile, stay with us because we have some news about the SSL Gold Cup. This is a cup that's going to be run every 2 years, and it's very much a nations cup, a nationality cup. And let's find out a little bit more about it.
SSL Gold Cup is like a World Cup in football. Top athletes, led by the captains, will represent their countries in the competition to crown the best sailing nation. Sport of sailing had never event like this. It's not about the technology. It's not about another sailing adventure. It's not about the individual competition. It's about the teamwork and the teams which will gather together to fight in the SSL Gold Cup. 5 of them will be selected from the SSL Global Ranking, and 5 others will be selected by the captain. They will meet all together to sail on the one designed boat provided by the regatta organizer. It is expected that more than 50 nations will join for the competition in 2021 for the SSL Gold Cup.
The SSL Gold Cup is a great opportunity for me personally, but also for other young Greek sailors who want to make an impact on their international sailing stage.
The SSL Gold Cup, in my eyes, is a really fantastic format, and it's going to be an amazing event. I'm already looking really forward to it, because for me as an individual sailor, laser sailor, always being alone on my boat, it's a great opportunity to sail.
With the SSL Gold Cup, we now have an event that has been missing in sailing. It's not about the technology, it's not about the speed, it's about the skill and talent and teamwork of the sailors. It's about countries, it's about national pride. And in the end, the winner will be determined by just a matter of meters.
Well, that's a pretty big deal in sailing to have one design boats and have nations compete against each other. It's early days, and we're going to be hearing a lot more about this over the next year. But already some of the competitors here have been chosen as skippers of this nations competition.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic concept, and really looking forward to seeing how this new nation against nation Gold Cup starts to shake out. I think the finals are planned for 2021. That's going to be the first showing of it. And as you say, there's already been some country captains have been appointed, and it'll draw on the best sailors from various classes. So what we're sailing in here in Garda this week is the star class, but obviously there are many other Olympic classes as well that the sailors will be picked from, and they'll all go towards their own national teams and then go through to qualify and race in the Gold Cup in 2021. Yeah, it should be brilliant.
A great concept that is. You can liken it to the Football World Cup. That's the easy way. Just like the SSL Grand Slams are like the ATP tennis tournament. They're basing these concepts on very successful formulas in very successful sports.
Yeah, and that's the wonderful thing about what's happening to sailing now, is that these other successful formats from other sports are being used in sailing, and they've attracted enormous interest in a very short space of time from some of the top names in our sport, which means that it's really struck a chord, Digby, with a lot of us in terms of what the sport needs in terms of where it's going. So it's really good news, and I'm really excited for the next 2 years in terms of seeing how the Gold Cup shapes up.
Well, indeed, and at some stage there will be an Irish team.
Well, fingers crossed. Yeah, we've got plenty of young sailors in Ireland who would absolutely love the chance to represent their country in the Gold Cup. Yeah. So it would be absolutely wonderful to see. Yeah.
Well, one of the skippers already chosen for that and working on that project, as we saw in the little clip, was Mateusz Kuźnierewicz, the gold medalist from Poland. He's a well-known athlete in Poland, instrumental in bringing lots of youngsters into the sport. And, he is one of the most successful Olympians from Poland. I think 2 gold medals. 3.
He won gold in Atlanta in '96, Digby, and he won bronze in Athens in 2004.
Oh, good memory, Prof. Well done, mate. I'll put you on the spot there. Sorry about that. But anyway, Mateusz Kuźnierewicz sat down with us at the SSL finals in the Bahamas and talked a little bit about how he got into sailing and his passion and love of sailing.
So Mateusz, welcome. A few days ago you sent us some pictures through email.
Yeah.
Here are the pictures. It's time to talk about them, I think. So.
All right, let's go. I wonder how old were I at that time, probably 2, 3. You can see that I love the water. Actually, I don't know if it is laughing or
crying.
Yeah, or crying, but yeah. I really enjoy always to spend the time in the bath and playing with the boats. Mm-hmm. Right. On that picture I must be, 7, 8. I didn't get any pressure from my parents that I should be good in sailing or good in sport and so on. They opened my view, and they helped me to go for swimming lessons, for the vacations on the boat. I was playing tennis, I was skiing. And then suddenly, when I started sailing, I said I love it most. I was 9 years old when my parents, actually my mom, asked me, do I want to go for holidays, sailing camp. Actually, the very interesting thing about my beginning, my career, was that for the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't make any good results. No, I'm not talking about the national championships. I'm talking about the local regattas close to Warsaw on the artificial lake. I was finishing 15th, 20th, 25 on the Optimist. This picture was made in 1989, I believe. You can see the style of my life jacket. They were made in Poland, but at that time I was a pretty good sailor. I was silver medalist on the OK dinghy of the World Championships, so I was a member of the Polish national team. This is unbelievable. Yes, I love this picture. It's me and Dominic, who you can see in a blue shirt. This was our first Gold Cup. Okay. Today we sail together with Dominic. this is an unbelievable story. We were fighting for the Olympic passport.
Okay.
There is only one who can go for the Olympic Games, as you know, in sailing. And every time I was a little bit better. Then I won the gold in Atlanta, finished fourth in Sydney, bronze in Athens. Dominic was always very close. We were sailing. And then after Athens, I asked Dominic if he would like to join me in a campaign for first Beijing and then London. We were rivals, but still good mates. So there was no problem for us, for me and for Dominic, to join together. And I always take care about relations in sport. Even someone today is your rival, it could be your partner in the future. It could be a person you will ask for help or for the support. Or maybe, like I know also examples, your rival today can be your boss in the future. So yeah, this is a lifetime story, which I will always remember. Yeah, that was my first Olympic game. This is the middle of the regatta. We had the 10 races. After 5th or 6th race, I was already as a leader. I was sailing like, like a magician would come to me and, put it this. I read the wind. So it was flawless. I had a lot of fun on this Olympic Games.
And that's a big smile.
Exactly. I'm a happy man, when I enjoy something and when I win something, it doesn't have to really be the gold medal. This was the race to the marina after the last race in Athens Olympics where I won bronze medal. This happened a couple of hours later. You can see Ben Ainsley in the middle. You can see Rafael Trujillo from Spain, and myself with a little bit different haircut. I remember that I was already thinking about the future. I was thinking that I'm going to sail the Star. I like this picture. As you can see, we are, in a full mood, full speed. I love when the Star is reaching. This was the reach. We were sailing Triangle, and this was the race in Miami in 2008. World Championships. 116 boats.
Wow.
The best sailors on the world, and you know what? We won it. And I can tell you that probably if you would ask me what result was the most precious for me in my sailing career, I wouldn't point out on the Olympic gold. I would say that winning the World Championships in the Star, especially in that fleet, it's such a difficult conditions where was my biggest success. And to add to that, it's important for me that I didn't win it only by myself. Dominic was there. We were fast that moment. We were fast.
Well, Mateusz, thank you very much for your time. Thank you
Pleasure.
for the good stories.
Yeah.
Mateusz Kuznetovic mentioning his long-time crewmate Dominik Grzycki from Poland. What a guy.
Yeah, extraordinary athlete, extraordinary competitor, and wonderful that he won the Star Worlds in 2008 in Miami. I actually sailed in that event, Digby, and it's the hardest thing to do is to win your World Championships in an Olympic year. Because in an Olympic year, everybody is hitting the peak of their form. So if you can actually capture your world title in an Olympic year, it is absolutely amazing. And an extraordinary tale as well, because obviously he was childhood friends with Dominic, growing up sailing and competing in Poland, competing against each other as opposed to with each other in the same boat. And then they teamed up, and they've been so successful. And when I met Mateusz yesterday, I was asking him how Dominic was, and etc. And Mateusz was saying because he's had to drop some body weight now to sail the Dragon, because that's just the way the crew weight works in the Dragon. Himself and Dominic, their body weight total between the two of them doesn't quite add up to the maximum allowed in the Star, so he may not be able to sail with Dominic for the foreseeable future anyway. So, but anyway, Dominic is in great form. Matthias was telling me, and as well, you know, Matthias, you know, has won the World Championships in the Star class, but won 2 Olympic medals in the Finn class. And he won his first gold in Atlanta in 1996 at the age of 21, which was, you know, phenomenally young for a class that requires a lot of skill and a lot of experience. And the Finn class is the men's heavyweight dinghy, so it tends not to favour sailors that are very young, because it takes a while for that strength and body mass to build up. And quite often, whereas Ben Ainsley won his Olympic silver medal in Atlanta age 19, typically speaking, a Finn sailor would be a little bit older because they got to bulk out a little bit more, you know. So yeah, a big personality and a big profile in Poland too, Digby. You know, I have some Polish friends at home in Ireland, and they all would know Matthias Krznarowicz. You know, he's a very high-profile guy, not only in the sport and sailing in Poland, but just generally in Poland, you know. So, yeah.
Prof, I'm glancing down just the WhatsApp group on my phone to try and get a latest from the race committee. I understand the breeze has dropped a little bit at the top mark, so they're in holding pattern, as are we. Little brief moment to say hi to you guys, some of the people around the world. We just had a little message from Jamie Bogue, who was the team manager of Ian Walker's successful Abu Dhabi Volvo Ocean race. Jamie out there in, I think he's in Hong Kong or
No, he's
somewhere.
not. He's on the train to Gatwick.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's going home to Cowes. Yeah, so...
And a few other of our listeners, tell us in Facebook where you're watching, where you are, and do send a photo, if you like, of you guys watching, and tomorrow we might try and get a cap or, you know, a famous SSL cap out as a prize. That's always good fun.
That'd be good. The more people that see and watch this, the better, Digby. So it would be fantastic for people to log on to the Star Sailors League Facebook page and like it, and drop us a picture or a little video, or tell us where you're watching it from. It'd be great.
Prof, I'm hearing that racing has been pulled today. So that's an AP over A. No more racing today. Race 7 will be tomorrow, Prof. So sensible decision. We could see visually, if you've been watching, we could see the wind drop off during race number 6. A bit of a relief, slightly, I think, because I think it was going to be a super light wind and fickle race.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. You were getting the official information, and I was getting the unofficial information from Peter and Robert O'Leary's dad, Anthony, who's...
How does he know?
Because he's up the motorway halfway down the lake, looking at the wind up there as well, and he was saying that it looks super flat, less than 4 knots. So it's a good decision. You can't really sail or certainly start an event or start a race in less than 5 knots of wind. You may well need to finish a race in less than 5 knots, but starting a race in less than 5 knots of wind just means that any small little puff on one side of the course or the other, it just becomes a lottery and really unfair. So really, really good decision from the race team there to pull the racing for them.
Well, Prof, we've got just a couple more minutes before we go off air, and let's get into the overall leader table, the overall leaderboard. And remember, these are provisional; they're not the official ones from the race office. But you can see that the UFD now has to count for Robert Scheidt and Henry Burning, but still they are at the top of the leaderboard. 2 points now clear of Mateusz Krznarowicz and Federico Melo with that win there. 2 wins for those guys. 2 wins also for Diego Negri and Fritjof Clean, race 1 and 3, but they had a UFD, and if you don't get some of these overline earlies, these UFDs, coaches will tell you, well, you're not trying hard enough. Doyle and Infeliz in 4th, Freddie Lou for T in 5th. We hope that Brian is okay and that he can recover a little bit more from having that boat smash into him. He looked in bad shape this morning, but fair play to him and for both of them going out and getting a 14th in that last race. Cayard Lopez didn't have such a good race there, race number 6, so they will count that 28th as their discard, but they are firmly in that top 10, as are Benamati and Ambrosini. Very quiet little team from Italy, consistent results, and it is all about consistency. You don't have to win races to win this qualifying series. Xavier Rohart, Pierre-Alexis Ponceau are going to drop their 33rd. They came 25th today, not so good. We saw them heading out to the left-hand side of the racetrack and having a terrible start to that last race, but so they will have to count that 25th. But there in 8th and 9th is Eivind Melleby with Josh Revkind, the Norwegian-American duo. Both of these guys are top of the SSL skipper and crew leaderboards. And there is Santoni and Sergio Lambertenghi in 10th. These guys at the moment qualifying for Super Sunday, and that's good news for them. Merkelbach and Coy with their UFD there. That's a real drama for them because they're going to have to count that. They are in 11th. Mizura and Barac from Croatia in 12th. Lars Grail and Pedro Trush have moved up with that 15th. The O'Leary brothers have also moved up today into 14th. And then we can just dial down and see some of the guys, the names in trouble: Diaz and Prada, Zabo and Avalon, Fritz and Boltins. These guys are going to have a lot of work to do. Razmilovic and Hammersley, the Brits, were looking in good shape this morning going into the racing.
Yeah, Anthony's a top sailor himself, has podiumed in numerous Etchells World Championships, doesn't do a lot of star sailing, but likes doing 1 or 2 events a year. But as you say, there's all sorts of top sailors who are outside the top 15 who'll just, they'll really have to pull together a string of top results to get anywhere near the top 10 now. So, but that doesn't mean that they can't do it. But just looking at the top 10 results there now, Digby, every single one of them has either a World Championship or a European title or an Olympic medal, or a combination of all three. So it's a red-hot leaderboard, and it's amazing to see.
That's the note that we're going to finish on today, Prof. A red-hot leaderboard at the Star European Championship and first ever SSL Breeze Grand Slam. We're going to wrap it up with some of the nicest images of the day. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time, perhaps 2 races, and there's more qualifying racing to go before Sunday. So if you have time, do join us. Send us comments in the Facebook and YouTube links. Send us some pictures in the Facebook links, and we'll have a little hat as a competition with their treasured Star Sailors League hats, the hats there, and we'll send them out to the best photo and flash it on screen over the next couple of days. But from us, from the team, and from all the sailors, farewell, and we'll see you tomorrow in Lake Garda.